Welcome in, everybody. I'm muted. I'm off stage. Yours truly is tired today. Welcome into the beautiful mods. My baby's army, Jerry Lynn, Marie Curie. Welcome in, everybody. So I thought I would do it a little bit later today and see how this time goes because, you know, just when a good thing happens and I decide I'm going to do 11 a.m. daytime lives, yours truly gets a job, which is great news. It just means that I won't be as reliable on the times anymore. Just when I thought I was gonna be reliable and consistent You know, life had a different plan. Okay, let's get into this. We're going to cover the Tepe cases. I think at this point for Tepe, we're likely not looking at more than into next week. I'm pretty sure this case is going to still be talked about until Monday when he makes the court appearance, Michael McKee. Then I want to get back on Jack and Lily and Gus Lamont. We're always going to do a missing child case. And then I also want to start covering some other cases, which we'll start to talk about here. Excuse me. There's a few cases that I want to talk about. So we'll vote on those soon, and you guys can let me know which of the few that I'm debating we really want to dive into next. But let's start first with this video.
Ex-husband, and just how much of a monster he was, to be honest, emotionally abusive and threatening.
The brother-in-law of Spencer and Monique Tepe revealing details about Monique's ex-husband, Dr. Michael McKee, who's now accused of murdering the couple as their children slept. Were you surprised that the arrest was made?
No.
This comes as Columbus police speak for the first time since McKee's arrest, revealing new details about the evidence.
This was a targeted attack. This was a domestic violence related attack.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix.
I just saw the article on Sebastian Rogers. I was going to add it to this live, or not Sebastian Rogers, rather Jack and Lily, My Baby's Army. But let's keep this focused on, back to the Tepes. Thank you, hun.
There's a reason that Morgan & Morgan is America's largest personal injury law firm. That's because the firm fights. We are learning new details about the horrific murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe in Columbus, Ohio, and the evidence that police say links Monique's ex-husband, Michael McKee, to the murders. When Spencer Tepe and Monique were shot to death in the middle of the night as their young children slept, their family and friends were heartbroken, shocked, and saddened. It happened on December 30th, police say just before 4 a.m. And a member of the Tepe family tells me there was just one person that family and friends suspected of the chilling crime, Dr. Michael McKee, Monique Tepe's ex-husband. Days after the homicides, Columbus police released surveillance video of a shadowy figure walking down the street around the time of the murders, hoping that someone could identify this man. Monique married Michael McKee in the summer of 2015, but records show they separated 7 months later in 2016. But the couple didn't file for divorce until 2017. Records show Monique and Michael McKee had moved to Virginia from Ohio. Michael McKee was completing a residency. He had studied medicine at the Ohio State University, but Monique was not happy in Virginia and returned to Columbus, Ohio, while McKee remained in Virginia. And I can tell you that Michael McKee did not want this divorce, not at all. A spokesperson with the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms told me that they worked with Illinois State Police and Rockford Police to take McKee into custody on January 10th. That was a Saturday morning. The address where McKee was taken into custody comes back to a Chick-fil-A restaurant near the medical center where McKee worked as a vascular surgeon. Now, days after the arrest, and after McKee appeared in court, Columbus police are releasing new information and details about the investigation and evidence they say ties McKee to the murders.
We believe at this point, we have the person responsible for the murders of Monique and Spencer Tepe in custody, and that person is Michael McKee. This is still an active and ongoing investigation. Detectives are still going through evidence, tips, and videos. We can't speak to all the specific details related to this case, So we don't want to jeopardize the ultimate goal of conviction. But what we can say, this was a targeted attack. This was a domestic violence related attack. As we know, McKee is the ex-husband of Monique Tepe. We can say that we have the suspect's vehicle on neighborhood video surveillance arriving just before the murders and leaving shortly after. Detectives were able to link this vehicle to McKee. The vehicle was located in Rockford, Illinois, and evidence was found that showed McKee in possession of the vehicle before and after the homicides. We can also say that multiple weapons were taken from the property of McKee, and there is a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
Now, this information about a firearm being seized from McKee's home that has been linked, at least preliminarily, to the homicides is a major new development in this rapidly unfolding case. One reporter said at the press conference that neighbors had said they'd seen McKee at the Tepe home in the days before the homicides, but the police chief, she wouldn't confirm that information. And there are other questions surfacing. Did Michael McKee have any other relationships with women after Monique? Did he remarry? That's a really big question right now. And I've learned from sources that Michael McKee spoke to detectives early in the investigation and offered an alibi, but that story crumbled under scrutiny. McKee appeared in court earlier this week in Illinois and waived extradition, meaning he will return to Ohio without a fight to answer to these premeditated murder charges.
Yes, Your Honor.
What's your position at this time?
Yes, at this time, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. McKee, I will assert his right to counsel. I will assert his right to remain silent. And Mr. McKee believes that the most expeditious manner in which he may defend himself against the charges pending in Ohio and to plead not guilty would be to waive his right to an extradition hearing and to have a governor's warrant and to agree to his immediate transportation to Ohio.
Now, just this past weekend, friends and family gathered to mourn Spencer and Monique Tepe, the dentist and stay-at-home mom, the mother and father to two young children who, thank God, were unharmed in this double homicide. The Tepes were loved by so many.
Thank God he spared the kids. By the way, let me know where you're coming in from. What's your weather like where you're at today? We are getting a massive snowstorm here just outside of Ottawa, Canada. Let me know where you're coming in from and what your weather's like today. Do the thumbs up, please, as we keep listening to a deep dive.
So I want to bring in Rob Misla. He is the brother-in-law of Spencer and Monique Tepe. Rob, first of all, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. How are you and the families doing right now?
I think the past few days were bittersweet, but also probably the hardest days that we've experienced, especially on Monday with the burial service. Just kind of saying the final goodbyes was something that none of us ever imagined we'd experience. So trying to go back to work and live a normal life again is something that's impossible. Number one. Number two, just, there's just like a lot of grief takes a long time. So
I know you all just had the funerals for Monique and Spencer. That had to just be so difficult. I mean, you all should just be looking forward to the rest of all of your lives together. And I know I saw on Facebook that you were putting a video together for the service.
Yeah, I mean, I was assisting with kind of the photo slideshow. I'm going to put something else more heartfelt, I guess, together soon, just to honor them. But yeah, I mean, everybody in the family had some role to fill. There was maybe, I think there was more than 1,000 people there.
Wow.
Which the funeral home said was the largest they'd ever seen. I think that's just a big testament to who Monique and Spencer were and how impactful they were.
On Saturday, when you guys got the news that they had made the arrest, what were your feelings and the family's feelings?
It obviously doesn't bring them back. It doesn't reverse this entire situation. But to feel just some little bit of relief, it felt like some of the weight was lifted, especially the timing of it going with the funeral the next day. It's step one in the entire process, but at the same time, he's not convicted yet. So we're steadfast in making sure that all of these stones are unturned and that he's he doesn't walk free again. So
were you surprised that the arrest was made?
No. I had no idea about the timing or, who the investigators had as suspects, but I can just say that very early on, speaking for at least the Tepe side of the family, that we were pretty sure who did this.
And why was the Tepe side of the family so certain that he was the primary suspect, that he was going to be the person that law enforcement arrested and charged?
And again, yeah, I'm just trying to speak for the Tepe side of the family because, Monique's side had obviously a different relationship with her. They've known her since she was born. For us, we met Monique in 2018 when Spencer first introduced her to us. But we were fairly certain because of just what Monique had told us stories wise of her. She never called him by name. She would just call him her ex-husband, and just how much of a monster he was, to be honest, emotionally abusive and threatening. And, she did everything she could to extricate herself from that situation. And, met Spencer and lived a very happy life. But I can't speak for Monique, but I know that it changed her as a person. And perhaps it was always in the back of her mind. I don't know.
Had she ever spoken to you about it, or Spencer, or did you just hear about a lot of this after the fact?
No, we were aware. She wasn't shy about talking about it, and how it had impacted her kind of mentally just as a person going forward. So we had all heard stories and had talked to her deeply about these situations, but at the same time, we were all thinking this is something in the past. And Monique is clearly happy right now and has a family and is with the person that she loves. So while we were aware of it, we were also more awestruck by the couple themselves and how much they were in love. So
I would agree. This couple is so sad. They were so in love. We talked about in this case how there's always private pieces to people's lives that we don't see on social media. But it truly did not appear that this couple had anything but a pure, loving, joyous, happy relationship and life with their two kids. So sad.
Did Spencer and Monique ever voice concerns to you, or did Monique voice concerns that she thought this guy just was going to show back up, or that he wasn't letting go of the past?
I would say that she was always worried about him. But at the same time, we never thought that it seemed like a direct threat. And she never mentioned, like, of recent, at least to me, that that he'd been in contact with her or anything. So that's all I can say, I guess.
Mm-hmm. From the moment that this happened, it sounded like, from what I'm hearing from you, that you all thought immediately that this was Dr. McKee, that this was the guy. Did the family obviously say to law enforcement, to the detectives, that you've got to go talk to this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. And not just the family. I know friends, former coworkers of Monique, a lot of people were aware. And she wasn't, something that I really loved about Monique is she wasn't shy about talking about these experiences. I think kind of as just maybe a therapy. But yeah, I think I can't imagine how many tips they got that were leading to him.
Wow. You can see in the paperwork, they were married for like 7 months, and then the paperwork's not filed for over, it sounds like, a year. So was this like him just trying to get back with her, or do you know anything about that?
I mean, yeah, that would be my suspicion. For her to, you can see in the court documents, just give up the house and not fight for it. It was very obvious that she had to
not fight for the house. So she just walked away. We kind of suspected that, but interesting to hear Spencer's sister's husband say it.
To get away from him. And it seems as though he didn't believe that. He didn't understand why, I guess. I've never spoken to this person, and I hope I never do speak to him. But I think it just shows a lot that she didn't mind giving up any kind of equity in anything just to be removed from him entirely.
Mm-hmm. We saw your wedding video, and it was of Spencer and Monique, and it was very beautiful, very intimate inside their home. I mean, they looked so happy and joyful, and everybody was just so happy, and she just radiated joy. That's like the best way I can describe it when I look at her. Obviously, I didn't know her. I want you to tell me about Monique and Spencer. Your feelings about them, your thoughts about them, what you want people to know about them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that the wedding video can be kind of proof of what their love was like. But they were also way more than that. They were just good people. They were active in the community. They were popular neighbors, and the amount of people that I've met through them who have just become my friends. They were really kind of the center of this orbit, the nucleus, I guess, of so many people. And beyond that, they were obviously amazing parents. And you can see them in both of their children, good or bad. They both were they were different, but they were also the same. They balanced each other out really well, I think. They were just fun people to be around, and kind of lit up the room whenever they walked in.
Yeah. Spencer, he was a dentist, and I know that Monique was a stay-at-home mom. I'm sure she was just devoted to the children every day.
Goofball, class clown, athletic jock, and just brilliant dork, I guess, for lack of a better term. You really can't pigeonhole him, because he kind of existed outside of the bounds of what like a stereotype would be, I guess. I mean, he was the life of the party, but also just one of the most responsible people that I'd ever met. And it just showed, like, the amount of friends that showed up to mourn his loss was just it was incredible, to be honest. And the amount of friends that I have through him, I think, really speaks to how both of them just created this bond between people. They never compartmentalized friend groups. They just brought people together.
How is the Tepe side of the family doing? I mean, your wife, she was Spencer's sister. I mean, how are they coping right now?
Everyone's been incredibly strong, while the waves of grief kind of come and shift as they do. My wife specifically gave just an incredible speech at the funeral that had people both in absolute tears of laughter and in tears of sorrow. I think she put it perfectly, just perfectly described who Spencer was, not only as a brother, but as a person.
Robin, the statement that the family put out the other day, it talked about wanting, to see this, full accountability. What does that mean for the family?
It means whatever sentence the judge chooses on all of these counts that he's going to be charged on, because we feel very confident that he is guilty. He is the one that did this, and that justice will prevail. And again, we have so much confidence in not only the Columbus Police Department, but the investigators and all police that were involved.
Rob?
Columbus, Ohio, and certainly the most high profile in recent years. Police now say at a press conference today, which we will break down, that they have recovered the gun used to kill Spencer and Monique Tepe. They used a ballistic database, which our detective will explain momentarily. But the man accused of executing them, Dr. Michael David McKee, is still sitting in a jail in Winnebago County, Illinois, awaiting extradition, even though he waived his rights. So what's happening there? And then we're learning additional news about not one, but two Nevada lawsuits against Michael McKee. Most people, just about everyone who I know, has only mentioned the first lawsuit, but thanks to SDS Nation, where we have the best guests, but a better community. And
well, that's news. I only heard about one lawsuit. We're about to learn about another one. Isn't that cool? I actually listened to this last night, but I missed this part of it because I spend the evenings trying to get the best of the best for you guys. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this.
And the help of one Vesper Martini, we have uncovered a second lawsuit involving this guy, involving potential malpractice, where he evaded authorities which is what happened with the first lawsuit. So a special shout out to Vester Martini. But we are learning that he recently disappeared from Nevada while being sued, and he gave out bogus addresses. Now, lastly, there is a somewhat similar case from 2020 where a woman named Amy Harwick, A-M-I-E Harwick, was murdered, and it was at the hands of her boyfriend, who she said she was concerned about. The interesting thing here is that it was about the same amount of period of time that had passed since they had been in a relationship, which is almost a decade, and she was murdered. And now, sadly, Monique Tepe, according to authorities, had her life ended because of what authorities are now calling a domestic violence issue. Now, without further ado, let me bring in the guest, Dr. Lenore Walker. She is a world-renowned psychologist, author of The Battered Woman Syndrome, literally the author of the book, world-leading expert on trauma, patterns of abuse, and violence escalation. Next up here, we have Jay Fulton, a retired homicide detective with the Columbus Police Department. So these are his colleagues working this case, and he has told us in past shows that he does know the lead detective. And last but certainly not least, the Dr. Ildiko Tabori, a licensed psychologist from the Los Angeles area that joins us for all the high-profile celebrity cases. Dr. Lenore Walker, since you are the world expert on this and have literally written the book, just talk to us broadly here about Michael McKee. I mean, does he fit the MO? And clearly what is unusual or different about this case is the period of time that has elapsed since their marriage, which was 2017. And she was said to only be with him for 8 months of that marriage, which began in 2015. You are muted currently, but your thoughts, just broadly speaking, to start out. Oh, let me see if I can. COE, see if you can help out. Dr. Walker, are you able to unmute yourself there? Stand by, everyone. You know what? While she is doing that, Dr. Tabori, I'm going to go to you. How odd is it that this period of time has passed? I mean, sadly, in this country, we are always witnessing domestic violence. We're always hearing about it. It feels like it's never going to end. I don't know why no one ever learns. But what about this period of time that has passed or elapsed?
It definitely is interesting because usually these things happen within the context of a relationship, but it's not unheard of that they don't, obviously. It is, and you don't know what those interactions have been from 2017 until now. If there was some level of communication, if sporadically or consistently, or what other triggers were going on in his life. I mean, I did know about one malpractice lawsuit that he was evading. I didn't know about the second one until just now. But these are huge stressors, especially for somebody who's a medical professional, and that might have tipped him over the edge.
Yeah, I'm wondering that too. I think Dr. Lenore Walker is now unmuted.
Yes.
Question, you heard it. You know, what's odd about this, sadly, domestic violence seems to have no end. I mean, we're covering a trial today where a pair teamed up with the husband to murder the wife and an unsuspecting person. And it's everywhere you look, but not everywhere is it a 10-year period that has elapsed, roughly a 10-year period. What do you attribute the time lapse and then the sudden motive or the desire to kill this ex-wife?
Well, you know, I think not all domestic violence perpetrators are the same. And I really believe that some of them, perhaps this man as well, sounds very much like somebody who has what we sometimes call erotomania. They get fixated on a topic, you know, one person, and they can't let go. We see it with a lot of celebrities that get targeted by some of these people, oftentimes male celebrities with women. But in domestic violence cases, we have these men who are obsessed with the woman, and they won't let go. So my guess is that this man's been harboring something inside of him, and something triggered him. And I think that California case that we were talking about is very similar. That also was 10 years period. And it was meeting her or accidentally bumping into her about a month earlier that may have triggered him. What happened in McGee's case, we don't know yet. But if I were the police, I'd say look for the trigger and look for other events that were happening during this 10-year period, because it doesn't just usually anyhow, it doesn't just come about. It usually has something festering inside, and it pops up from time to time.
Do you think, and I'm going to get to Jay in a second, everyone forgive me, but do you think there are two separate lawsuits that we've uncovered related to malpractice in Nevada that he was running from? Could something, I guess, that separate and apart be the potential trigger, or no?
Well, it could have been. We don't know how mentally ill this guy is. And we may never know, because he may decide not to be examined by somebody, and then we won't know for sure unless we do a full examination. But anything could make him less stable. I also read something in one of the papers, maybe the New York Post or something, that they uncovered the fact that he didn't stay stable. He didn't work in one place for a while, that he went from jobs in some different states. And so that's suggesting that maybe he really wasn't very stable. It could have been anything. He could have seen something on television. He sounds like a loner, that he doesn't have a lot of people in his support group. So these are things that we have to check out. But my guess is that you're going to find somebody, not only a domestic violence offender, but also somebody who has some serious mental illness that's of a paranoid obsessive type.
Yeah, and right on cue, there are also reports, to your point, that he is estranged from his family, that he has not been speaking with his family for a number of years. Also reports that he's an adopted child. I have still yet to independently confirm that, but the estrangement I've read about in multiple places. So on to the law enforcement side of this. Jay, number one, why the press conference today? It wasn't really announced, at least not to the, maybe the local media. They got a little bit of a heads up, but there was a police conference with Chief Liane Bryant. Why'd you choose today, Jay? It just seems like a random sort of Wednesday, I think it is, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think probably the pressure is building up locally for answers, the media, local media. And so this is kind of a pressure valve situation where Chief can go on there with the mayor, and Chief of the detectives was there as well. And they can get out a little information that's not going to be damaging to the case, but it also puts their faces out there. They're responding to the local cry for information. So it's almost like a pressure valve thing. Once again, I watched it. They didn't give up a ton of information or anything that might certainly damage the prosecution down the road. So just kind of almost like a status update. I think it was only about 20 minutes long. So yeah. I think that was the reason, just because the cry for information is loud here.
Yeah, we have a little snippet. I'm going to play it momentarily. Typically I'm plugging my book, Surviving the Survivor, about my mother, a child Holocaust survivor who likes to yell at me. Hence, I'm trying to survive her. Hence the title of the show, which fits true crime, even though it didn't start as true crime. But today, I will plug my father's book, who's no longer with us. 1971, Humanistic Psychiatry from Oppression to Choice. My father was a psychiatrist. I think about 11 people wrote it. I'm trying to rework it now, but no one in my family understands it to rework it. But the headline, the title, you can sort of understand, which is From Oppression to Choice, which brings me to this comment, Dr. Tabori, and I'll ask you as well, Dr. Walker. Mentally ill or a man with poor character who made evil choices. Now, my father, I can hear him, talk to him occasionally, even though he's not with us, but he would snicker, I guess, at the world of psychology, therapists, etc., basically just completely excusing this guy, saying, well, he's mentally ill because he's an adult, he went to medical school, and ultimately he is responsible for his choices. Is that true or not, Dr. Tabori?
Well, yeah, I mean, he is responsible for his choices, right? I mean, we don't know about his mental health history. I mean, obviously there's something going on, but it's not his fault, especially if it's a chronic mental health condition like bipolar disorder. It's not his fault, but it is his responsibility to take care of.
Yeah. Dr. Walker?
I agree. As soon as psychologists start talking, people think we're excusing the behavior. We're really just trying to understand it. His behavior is unusual, and it's not the usual that you would see in people, on everyday people. And so we're not at all, I'm never trying to excuse it. I'm just trying to explain why it happened, sometimes to help other women understand that they may really be in danger. I don't know how much danger this woman really felt that she was in, but we've read something about families saying they thought it was him right away. So there must have been some reports that she made that made them think that he could be guilty of such violence. But you can have mentally ill people who are never going to be violent, but you also can have those who will be violent. And the ones that we know have the greatest probability of some violence are paranoid and delusional people. And somebody who is delusional, who really thinks that there was the greatest love affair that they would have had she not left him, or whatever version of that it might have been, are the ones who would be the most dangerous.
Well put. And I like the way you characterize that. Here is clip from the press conference today. This is Chief Elaine Bryant, who came over from the Detroit Police Department. Apparently, she's the chief in Columbus, Ohio, speaking earlier today. And then we will get Jay Fulton's take on what she has
I
to say.
believe at this point, we have the person responsible for the murders of Monique and Spencer Tepe in custody. And that person is Michael McKee. This is still an active and ongoing investigation. Detectives are still going through evidence, tips, and videos. We can't speak to all the specific details related to this case, so we don't want to jeopardize the ultimate goal of conviction. But what we can say, this was a targeted attack. This was a domestic violence related attack. As we know, McKee is the ex-husband of Monique Tepe. We can say that we have the suspect's vehicle on neighborhood video surveillance arriving just before the murders and leaving shortly after. Detectives were able to link this vehicle to McKee. The vehicle was located in Rockford, Illinois, and evidence was found that showed McKee in possession of the vehicle before and after the homicides. We can also say that multiple weapons were taken from the property of McKee, and there's a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
That last part, the most important part, in my opinion, correct, Jay Fulton, the police coming out and saying, Jay, explain what NIBIN is, but essentially that they have the murder weapon in their possession.
So what the NIBIN system is, so early on in this investigation, they reported that they did recover shell casings. So those shell casings have been scientifically entered into what's called the NIBIN system. It's a database that allows you to compare. Shell casings could be found in Ohio and it could be found in Georgia, and you could match those shell casings having been fired from the same weapon. So what they've said and what the chief has indicated in this instance is that during one of the search warrants in the Chicagoland area, I don't know if it was in the vehicle, I don't know if it was at the residence, I don't know if it was at the place of employment. She kind of skirted around that by saying from his property, but from somewhere they recovered his firearm and a series of firearms. And one of those firearms, whether they brought it back and tested it here or were able to test it where it was recovered, most likely that would have been transported back to Ohio and tested in our crime lab. And they have matched those casings from that firearm to the ones that were recovered from the double homicide scene. And that is there'll be additional testing on that gun will be in the form of DNA swabs. And that is a spike. That is a golden spike for any homicide investigation.
Shout out to Ron.
Yeah, we had some amazing news yesterday, right? That they recovered the gun, that they place him. They've got evidence that places McKee at the scene at the time of the murders. Not only the camera surveillance of him coming into to the property, coming from his car back to his car, but they say they place him at the scene at the time of the murders, and they also have the weapon. So sounds like they have more than enough to, again, he's innocent until proven guilty, but it does certainly sound like they have enough to go forward with these charges.
The Davis, this is true. We're climbing up here. Someone said we're close to 200. Also, we're far from it, 190,000 subs. So if you're watching tonight, please like, please subscribe. And we've got a newly activated Patreon page, thanks to the COE and some of the others behind the scenes. But we are just getting started. Come back to me in 10 years. By the way, tonight I've been asked, and I love to do it, to go on CNN with Laura Coates, who is very talented, in my opinion, former federal prosecutor, talk about the Brendan Banfield case. So please join us there. And I told my son, hey, you know that your dad is a TV star? He's going to be on CNN. He's going to be on He was on his iPad in the living room, of course. He's sick. And I screamed to him from the kitchen. I said, your dad is going to be on CNN. And there was a complete pause, 5 seconds. And he said, what is CNN? So nothing like kids to keep you grounded. If it ain't YouTube, they don't care. But I'm on YouTube, so there you go, son. I hope you're listening. Dr. Lenore Walker, to you. I asked this question the other day, half facetiously, half true, and I also come from a family of doctors, for full disclosure. How come someone so smart? This guy was like a national merit finalist, top of his class. How can someone so smart be so dumb?
Well, street smarts are not handed out to everybody. And sometimes people survive by being able to be book smart. They can read, they're intelligent enough to be able to pass tests. Medical school really works kids really hard. And so sometimes you don't pick up the seriousness of what's going on in their head. So he's not dumb. He's obviously quite a smart man. And who knows what else he's done during his life that we don't know. He's not a young man.
Yeah. Huh. Not
Yeah,
too
my,
old.
my, my suspicion is that there are other people that have gotten in his way and have felt his anger at some point.
Dr. Walker, do you think if we spoke to past girlfriends, would they tell you? You think they would tell you that he's a controlling individual?
Absolutely. I think, I think you speak to if he has past girlfriends or present girlfriends. We don't know what, but it would be very nice if any of them came forward. Some of my favorite cases for battered women are when they get together with former wives or girlfriends of the perpetrator. And they gang up on him, and he's done when they all communicate with one another.
Yeah, and Dr. DeVore, you were shaking your head before you get to your answer here. Michael McKee, this is from Rosecrans High School in Ohio. It's hard to read, but Michael McKee is a senior, ranked 5th in his class with a 3.9 GPA. He is a commended National Merit Scholar, Biology Student of the Year, and member of the National Honor Society. On and on it goes, by all, and a football player, I guess a star athlete there. And then he goes and drives his own car, gets caught basically within a matter of 10 days, which is not a lot of time. But Dr. DeVore, you had a big reaction to potential previous girlfriends in his life. By the way, if anyone is out there who dated this guy and is watching this, Surviving the Survivor at Gmail, I'd love to get you on. We could bring Dr. Walker and DeVore back. But what would they tell us, you think, Dr. DeVore?
Oh, yeah, this isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern of behavior. You don't go from like being a super stable, nice, healthy guy and then go and kill your ex-wife and her husband. This isn't that person. I mean, this happens repeatedly in relationships, and he's gotten away with it on some level. And I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Walker was saying too, is that, academic smarts does not equate to emotional intelligence. Those are two very different concepts.
Right.
And it's also quite interesting that he's a surgeon. This is a person who didn't relate to other human beings because all his patients were sleeping.
That's a very good point. I promise I'm coming back to Jay. Jay was the man at the center of it all yesterday. See how quick things change in TV, Jay? We use you and we abuse.
I mean, I hate to say it, but there is the old adage that, doctors aren't really known for their bedside manners. So he certainly did not need to be a super polite, nice man to be a surgeon, right? That's just very generalized statements, but yeah, crazy how this guy would be so angry that he would throw his entire life away for this.
All good.
Now we're coming right back to you. But Dr. Lenore Walker, another Jay is becoming an internet sensation. Yes, he is. Dr. Lenore Walker, one other word that I've seen in the chat already, probably 10 times, that gets tossed around a lot is narcissist. So what really is a narcissist? I mean, is the whole world, is anyone who commits a crime a narcissist? Why is this guy a narcissist?
Well, narcissist is a label that's usually used on people who only think about themselves. Anything they do has to come through their own personal lens. They usually don't have empathy for other people. They usually don't even try to understand how anybody else is feeling. It's their feelings that come first. And they can be pretty difficult to live with. Because in any relationship, you want to have somebody who cares about you as well as you care about them. And it's very difficult to find that. Now, sometimes they will show that they care about someone, but only to get them to do what you want, what they want you to do. And that's typical of many batterers. They will. They're not always mean, and they're not always violent. In fact, for many of them that I've studied, if they can get you to do what they want by being nice and being loving and by giving you what you want, they'll do that first. And they won't resort to using abuse and violence until you don't agree with them. And then, of course, they will escalate their behavior. A very interesting pattern. And that's true for most batterers. Even though they're not all the same, they do have some things in common. And what is in common is this: sometimes they're loving, because women wouldn't fall in love with a batterer if they were mean and nasty all the time. There's usually some nice behavior. And that's what women think of the real person. But, as we've talked about before on some of your shows, Joel, they have two parts to their personality. They're not like people who are consistent. They are inconsistent. And so sometimes especially when they want something. And if they want the woman to love them, they really will shower her with all kinds of things to make her.
Have any of you had a relationship like this where somebody wanted something from you and showered you endlessly to the point where you thought they were somebody different? I have. Has anybody else here had experience with that? Scary, scary, scary. It's also really scary to learn that it's much more common for an ex-male to murder their ex-female than it is an ex-female to murder an ex-male spouse.
Feel safe until she does, as I said, she doesn't go along with something, and then they can be very, very mean.
Yeah, and that's a great.
Thank you, Anne. You're so sweet. Thank you, honey. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You got yourself a membership, Anne. Thank you for being a member. The memberships, thank you, honey. The memberships are $2.99 a month. We're going to start, now that I'm feeling better, this weekend, Saturday night, I'll be live. And I'll probably do a members live this weekend. So there's also 30 or 40 videos in there for members only.
Great point. I mean, they've got to draw you in. There's a comment from Island Girl, but I want to get to this one. She says, and I'll let Dr. Tabori respond, and then right after this from Dr. Tabori, we'll get back to Jay. But Island Girl says, this is her, not me. Most physicians are narcissistic. I guess, Dr. Tabori, let me read this too, and then I'll have you respond to that. I'm a little behind, but do you think the reason he attacked the husband with multiple ammo over the one to the wife shows jealous rage towards him? Thank you. Dr. Tabori, are all doctors narcissistic? And then we can get to this comment.
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, they don't have the best bedside manner, right? I mean, because they don't have to. Again, their patients are sleeping. But yeah, I mean, who knows? And it's really hard to generalize things like that. You know, you can't. When I was in grad school, there was still that whole thing, and it may still be going around. It's like everybody who goes into mental health is crazy themselves. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, no, that's sort of true. But in terms of, so according to reports, and Jay, we'll get to you in a sec, I've heard conflicting reports that maybe she actually had more than one gunshot. However, right now on the record, it has been stated that it was one gunshot. But if he was riddled with bullets, Dr. Tabori, and she received one shot, does it tell you that he had rage towards him more so than her?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's an overkill for her husband. And you know, there is still, I mean, it sounds like there's still some caring for his wife. I mean, I'll only shoot you once, maybe twice. But yeah, he's angry. He's pissed. I mean, if you want to hurt somebody, you're going to punch them multiple times. If you want to push them away, you just do it once.
Yeah. Jay Fulton, you want to just add on to that from an investigative perspective as a detective, what does it tell you that he's got multiple gunshots, and apparently she has a single gunshot to the side, which penetrated her heart, I assume, and killed her? Does it tell you, even though there's this DV situation and he had this rage apparently built up, that he was actually more enraged, do you think, at Spencer than Monique?
Well, not necessarily. That could have been several things. Now, if you're in a situation like that, and I believe this happened over a period of time, this is not a situation where I don't believe where these individuals were surprised. I think he was in this house for longer than it would have taken just to commit the homicides. So the sequence of how people were shot would be the punishing thing to the female victim. If she's forced to watch him shoot her husband multiple times, that is probably, in his mind, that's hurting her more than the actual taking of her life in the mind of the killer. So the other thing is, when you're going to start this thing, you also have some self-preservation, even as a homicide suspect. And if you're in that situation, who is the threat to you? Who might be able to change the landscape of what's going on in that bedroom or in that living room? Who could challenge you, maybe put up physical resistance in this light of what's going on? So that the male half would have been the threat that he would have assessed, even though he's in there to cause this harm. The male threat could have potentially represented a threat. We don't know the position of the bodies. Is it possible that Spencer saw that this was going to go down and he took some action? I mean, I don't think you're going to, if your mind comes to the conclusion that this is how this is going to go, you're not going to stand there and take it. So
Yeah.
if he launched himself in some manner at the suspect, this is going to result in a reaction where multiple shots were fired to put him down and take away that threat. And then he has the female victim by herself. So I believe you're going to find out that he spent maybe not significant time, but certainly time longer than what it would take to go in there and just do the shootings. That, the dogs being corralled in with the children in a separate room. So once again, the parents didn't do that. That was an action of the suspect.
Yeah, and Jay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Walker. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say she may also, as a domestic violence survivor, have learned how to calm him down, and she may have taken some time to try to talk him down from his anger. So that may have also entered into the scene.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Dr. Tabori, did you want to add to that? I mean, I guess
I was just saying that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I know a lot of other experts, and what do I know? But I know a lot of the other experts that have been following this case, and we're going to hear some of them here today, are going to say that they firmly believe that he probably broke in, which none of us know, right? We're all just guessing and assuming right now. But I just have this feeling that they let him in, and maybe there was a little bit more. I don't know. I know. I don't know. What do y'all think? Do you think they let him in? I mean, I agree, though. My baby's army, and they mentioned that on one of these podcasts last night. I think Brandy Churchill said exactly what you said. I mean, he had to have known the code to drive all the way out there, but still.
I was just saying that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in these situations, you learn mechanisms to calm the agitated person down, which is a sad byproduct of it all. But Jay, now that police are saying, look, we've got this murder weapon and he's not in this database for ballistics, is that, in terms of the weapon, is that like game, set, and match? Is this basically full? I mean, how does a defense come back against a database like that, say, no, you've got the wrong weapon?
Well, there's multiple ways they could try and do that. It's science, and we've seen juries reject science in notable trials in the past. But I think when you have a weapon, and if it's matched ballistically, which this weapon sounds like it is, and if it's matched with DNA, if this gentleman handled the weapon, then they're going to be able to find his biological material on said weapon. And they'll try and do whatever they can to keep that weapon out as a defense attorney, maybe by challenging the validity of the search warrants that recovered it, or things of that matter. But they're not going to want to talk a lot about the firearm, because that is a pretty dead set match. That's pretty irrefutable if you listen to the science.
They'll talk about something else. Who Mike G here? Dr. Tabori, dude just wanted to get caught. 0 Fs. Seriously didn't report the gun stolen months ago and just kept it for forensics. The point of the comment here, he wanted to get caught. Sad. When you see him in court and you look at this mugshot, he seems, no, that's not it, but here it is. Here it is. He looks soulless there compared to the pictures.
What do you guys think? Do you think he wanted to get caught? Do you think he was at the end of his rope and he was just ready to go out with a blaze and didn't care if he got caught? I don't know. I don't know. Could be.
On the left, do you think there's anything to this notion that he wanted to get caught?
I don't know if, a surgeon who's lived a pretty decent life and just bought a $400,000 home wanted to get caught. If there is some personality disorder, some level of narcissism, he may have been thinking that he wouldn't get caught. But I mean, when you've been living a nice free lifestyle and then you go to live in however big a cell is it, or a dorm room with a bunch of other men, I mean, nobody wants to do that unless you need housing for the winter, right?
Yeah. Okay, so early on in the story, we were on it. We had I think it was the second day, the brother-in-law, the person who is married to Spencer's sister, Maddie. He came on the show. His name is Rob Misla, and he's the one that's been on camera. And of course, he came on, and then people said he looked suspicious, because that always happens. We have to let the system play out. So this guy has been under the radar, and I'm sure is super stressed out. But he's He's been cool, calm, and collected and talking to the media. And here he is, the COE put this together, talking about the family said that they knew it was going to be this guy. So they clearly knew and had knowledge that he was a problem. Let's watch this, and then we'll get a take from everybody here.
Because he had threatened her life on multiple occasions when they were married. She wasn't shy about talking to people about traumatic experiences that she had with her ex and just how emotionally abusive he was to her. It affected her to this day. If any of us had known that these threats were actually grounded in possibility, we all would have acted differently.
Lenore Walker, that last one is haunting. If any of us knew that these threats were grounded in reality, your comment, your reaction.
Well, I think it's true. We don't take emotional abuse as seriously as we take the physical abuse. But in the end, that coercive control and the nasty things that you do to somebody as if they aren't human need to be taken as seriously as a physical punch or blow, because it escalates. My research showed that it starts with loving behavior, overly sometimes a loving behavior, and then it goes into emotional control, coercive control, we call it today, and power, and taking the power away from the person, using all kinds of psychological abuse, and finally it goes into physical abuse. Sometimes sexual abuse is thrown into that as well. And so we have to take it seriously and stop it early. Because if we don't stop it early, it will escalate. Not always to murder, thank goodness, but it will get worse and worse. And we teach women to try to get out of the situation, but they have to do it carefully, because most likely they're going to be more seriously hurt or killed when they try to leave the battery.
They absolutely have to do it carefully. Been there, done that. But who's worried about it 8 years later, unless, as we heard here, now I tried to substantiate. We've had one article we read here last week or earlier this week. I can't remember. It's all a blur now. On a potential sighting of him by their back gate. And I found one article. I'm not showing it because I think it might be clickbaity. It's literally just the title suggesting that the neighbor spotted McKee a week prior at the house by the back gate, staring at the house. And we can't substantiate that. But it does make me really wonder. It does make me really wonder if he was stalking them, and if Monique really knew that he was stalking them. Because if she did know, you'd think she'd call the police, given how much she said we hear from the relative of Rob Malash that she was so terrified of him, and she still talked about it 8 years later. You would think if they had any notion that he was stalking them, they would have called the cops.
And in this case, we've got somebody who probably festered and obsessed about the woman 10 years before he got his revenge on her. And there are men out there, fortunately not that many, but as I said, not every batterer is the same, and family need to help. Sometimes help doesn't mean telling her to leave. Sometimes help means giving her more strength so she can make her own decisions. But family plays a very important part here.
Dr. Walker, for every male DV perpetrator who is either mentally or physically violent, how many women are there out there like that toward men?
Well, we don't know. In the 50 years or so I've been doing this work, everybody thinks there are more women who are violent than we actually see. But at this point, the data suggests somewhere between 5 to 10% of domestic violence cases are either women or mutual violence, and sometimes in the lesbian community as well. So it's a very small percentage.
Sarah Adams, is it possible he was fired from a job in Rockford, thus the name change of the practice? I assume that's possible. Also, this comment, thank you, Sarah Adams. Susie or Sue's 4Q, why is nobody addressing the fact that they were dating before they got engaged and married, and that the wedding was canceled a couple of times? I didn't know that, which is why I'm not. But Dr. Tabori, what is your, cautionary warning to people out there who are thinking, we happen to know someone who was going to get married, just pulled the plug. I have no idea who.
Have you guys heard that the marriage was canceled a few times? Did you hear that? I've never heard that. Thank you to all the moderators, Jerry, Liane, Marie Curie. Welcome in, Anne again. My Baby's Army. Who else have we got here? I think Hope's here. Welcome in. Say hi to all the mods, everybody. Please thank them for the great work they do here, keeping the chat friendly.
Who it is, I can't remember, but I know I just heard a story like this. If you're having second thoughts, Dr. Tabori, before getting married, what is your advice?
Yeah, if you're having second thoughts, really look into that. I mean, if you've been dating for a few years and you're of appropriate marrying age, you shouldn't be having these second thoughts. And if you are, you need to figure out what that's about. And I'm wondering if and then if just one time, and you reschedule it just once, but it sounds like it was rescheduled a few times. So what really was going on? Was it this abuse? You have that cycle of violence where you have, there's the honeymoon period, the buildup, and then the explosion, and then it just keeps going around in circles. So that might have been what was going on, and she didn't know that she was caught in this loop.
Someone just said reason 392 to stay single. I say reason 6,873,721 to have dogs and not humans in your life, which is what I do. But how do we take this emotional abuse more seriously when law enforcement doesn't? Not until someone is actually hurt or killed. Jay Fulton, we pivot to you now. This is a great question. A lot of times, we saw this with Charles Vallow and Lori Vallow, another hugely high-profile case. He called.
I mean, it's kind of an interesting statement. I had to piggyback on that. I mean, kind of don't you feel the world's kind of like that right now? We all kind of all hate humans and prefer animals, but we're all human. It's kind of this interesting phase in the world where a lot of people are really turning into introverts and wanting to stay away from humans. And when we follow true crime, of course, we see the worst of people. So does it make you wonder sometimes, do you prefer dogs like Joel, and make you wonder why you deal with humans in life? Your YouTube's tripping today. Sorry, Hope.
Police, and they had their dash cam running, and he said to them, my wife, and I'm paraphrasing, my wife is nuts and she's going to hurt me, she's going to kill me. And they didn't, they just said there's nothing we can do right now, there's no immediate threat. How much does law enforcement have its hands tied, Jay Fulton, when it comes to DV situations and threats?
Well, I'm not gonna take that way out. Our hands aren't tied. It's changed a lot. I came on the police department in 1987. And in the domestic violence with violence situations, you had to have the victim, whether it be the male victim or the female victim, sign a piece of paper. If they refused to sign that paper, you left. Then as we became more educated and cities got sued, then we had a mandatory arrest policy. And that meant if there was violence, any sign of violence, the person most likely to have caused the injury to the other party is going to go to jail that night. And once again, we can take them to jail, but the victim of the abuse has to take an active role in the prosecution. That's just the legal system that we're dealing with. I think police have come a long way. One of the problems here is it sounds like there were no, at least not in Columbus, there was no reports of violence. Emotional abuse is kind of a different thing for officers. We're not doctors. We're educated as police officers, and anything we've educated ourselves with outside of police work. But if somebody describes emotional abuse to you, I think you can give counsel to the party that's describing this, but I don't know that that's an arrestable offense under the Ohio Revised Code, which is what we go by. If it's threats, yes, but if it's the daily, and we know how these people operate, it could be just coming home with a gray cloud over your head and breaking things in the house. Punching holes in the drywall. It's not against the law to punch a hole in your own drywall if these people live it. So, you can counsel people. You can kind of point them towards resources that are out there that would better serve them than if it's not an arrestable situation. It's always within our purview to take somebody and give them a ride somewhere else, to take them to family or whatever. But we do see these things happen over and over again, oftentimes at the same residences, and people will either go down and dismiss the charges at court. But I think the police department is certainly trying, and I'm not going to get it right every time, but it's certainly changed a lot in the 33 years that I was with the Columbus Police Department, because literally you could come to the door with swollen eye and a fat lip and say, "Get off my porch," and we would have to leave. I mean, we couldn't take anybody into custody. So, but that's changed, and it's evolving, and I hope that we get better at it, because we're a big part of the puzzle when it comes to, we're the ones that encounter it before the doctors do, before the attorneys do, and it is something we need to do better. And I hope that continues to improve.
Yeah, well said. Someone said Jay is very thoughtful, and I agree. By the way, there's news that Timothy Busfield just had his first court appearance. I'd like to sneak those in. I have no idea if it was on camera. If it was, we'll get it posted for you under the video tab. I hate to pat myself on the back, but yesterday we did a show on him, and I ended the show by saying it was my opinion that the floodgates are now open. And sure enough, today a father has come forward to say that Timothy Busfield, at his children's theater that he founded, according to this father, Timothy Busfield was groping a 16-year-old girl underneath her pants. And that has become another story. And trust me, there will be more stories involving Timothy Busfield. We'll pick that back up. Now, trigger warnings. I'm going to ask a question that's a little disturbing, but the only reason I'm doing it is now this COE is having a heart attack right now. But I've gotten probably her before he killed her. He obviously is a narcissistic control freak with violent tendencies. Dr. Tabori, I mean, if someone said, "What do you think?" and that's me, what do you think?
I mean, it's entirely possible either before or after he murdered her. I mean, we don't know. And again, allegedly murdered her, so we're not, making an assumption here. But yeah, I mean, it is entirely possible. I mean, this is somebody who's in control. And
I mean, you don't think there was any sexual assault, do you? Oh my God, I hadn't even considered that. Tell me, everybody, do you think he assaulted her? Oh my God. I hadn't even considered that. What do you guys think? That is just not nice to think about. Not nice to.
And what we understand about SA is that it is it's about power and control. It's not about sex or romance or anything else.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dr. Walker, if you want.
No, I just want to say I totally agree.
Yeah, there are reports that he's adopted, and then someone had a comment that said adopted equals abandonment. But just last night we had Jeff Wenninger on. He's a retired lieutenant in the LAPD, and he himself was adopted. And he said he has according to him, zero abandonment issues. He considered his adopted parents completely his parents. He has a half brother who's Japanese, who is also adopted, and said that he even met his birth parents and have felt zero attachment to them. So is there some sort of equivalent between being adopted and abandonment?
I think it depends on how the adoption is handled. Certainly, there are stories of kids who are not told that they're adopted until they're older, and then they feel like they don't have that. It's not just abandonment, but that betrayal. That why didn't you tell me? And what else have you kept hidden from me? So each story is very different. I do not know of any literature that would suggest that being adopted would cause this kind of behavior.
I'm the mother of an adopted child, and we adopted her at birth, and we kept open lines of communication with her birth mom. And I hope she hasn't ever felt that she was abandoned. She has a relationship with her birth siblings. But she's been with us since she was, 14 hours old. So,
well, congrats on that. I'm glad you're a mother, and there are, for all the horrible stories that are out there, there are great people who do great things and make the world a better place. Dr. Tabori, you're one of them. So thanks for sharing that, because I know that is personal. One more investigative question, then I'm going to get onto this lawsuit, and then we'll end with this other case that is somewhat similar. But Jay Fulton, to you. It was revealed today that McKee was arrested near a fast food restaurant in Rockford on January 10th. So they didn't do it at his home. They probably pulled him over, I would guess, on some sort of routine traffic stop. He has since invoked his right to remain silent, refusing to speak with detectives, facing these 2 counts of now aggravated murder. Just give me some of the inside baseball here. I mean, how frustrating is it on your end to do all this work and then, effectuate this arrest, get him into custody, and then this guy who's smart is saying, no, I'm not talking to you. How frustrating is it for you?
It's the rules. I mean, and it's not uncommon. I'm a little surprised because I do believe that the narcissist and this guy wanted to talk. Maybe that's the one smart thing he did. I mean, he took his own car. He kept the firearm. I mean, they don't ever do themselves favors when they discuss the case with us because this is what we're paid to do. But a lot of times, and especially a guy like this, he wants to tell somebody. He wants to tell how she had it coming, or wants to tell them, I'm not the one. These guys are all screwed up. He wants to talk about it because it's about him, and it gives him an opportunity to sit there and talk about himself. So if he did one thing smart, and it turns out he didn't make a statement, and he invoked his Miranda rights, that's probably the one smart thing he did. Now, does it change anything in the physical evidence? Absolutely not. Does it change anything? What is frustrating in is you want the answers. We want to know. We had that other question. He spent. I do believe he spent time in there. I don't know what he did with that time, but he was in that apartment for more than the time it took to effectuate the murder. So these are the questions you.
Okay, this guy talking now, Jay, is a retired Columbus, Ohio police officer. So he's from the area. And he just said he was inside the home longer than it took to effectuate the murders. Well, that's what I suspect. I don't know where he's getting that information from, but I mean, he is retired from the very police force that just arrested Michael McKee and is holding him. Well, they're going to bring him back for extradition, rather. They didn't actually arrest him. They had other police arrest him. But this police force, where they're bringing the charges against him, I wonder if he has inside information that does say he was there longer than the time it took just to shoot them. I was saying that yesterday. I mean, I have no idea. I'm not an expert, but it seems to me if you're holding a grudge for that long, you're not going to just walk in, bang, bang, and leave. You got things you want to say to these people and things you want to share on how they ruined your life, etc. I don't know, but I hope that's not the case. I hope I'm wrong, but it sounds like Jay Fulton here thinks that might be the case too.
But they know they're going to know how he got in without him telling us, and we're going to know what actions he took in regards to the victims from the medical postmortems.
Yeah. So Jay, I was going to ask you that. Now, I asked earlier about possible sexual assault. If he did do this, you will get the answers on that.
There will be physical. The victims were inside a residence, and the time elapsed is about 7 hours from the incident to the discovery of the body. So it's not a situation where they had to. This physical evidence had time to be dissipated. So that's going to be answered. So you don't need to talk to him to know that. You don't need to talk to him to know, now that we have a firearm, we're going to know where he purchased it or the genesis of that firearm. The alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, we'll do a firearm test. We'll know where that firearm was built. We'll know where it was shipped to, and we'll know who purchased it. And so these things are all stuff that can be proven by investigation. The satisfying part is a confession. I don't think this guy would have probably ever confessed. He would have sat there and screwed with the investigators for a little while, because he is the smartest guy in that interview room, or at least thinks he is. And so it probably saved the primary detective some frustration, because those guys are the worst people to sit down and talk to. It's like, you have to do it. But I mean, it's like the worst 2 hours of your life, because and I've talked to these people, and it's all about them. And, so let me go get your lawyer, and we'll bring this wheelbarrow full of evidence to court, and we'll see how that works out for you.
Dr. Walker, I think you wanted to jump in.
No, it's okay. I was just thinking, the 7 hours, how were that after he shot them, or was that just the amount of time he was in?
They're putting that's not the amount of time he was in. That goes from the time that's being reported as the time of the crime, which I believe was 3:53 a.m.
Okay.
So they have narrowed down the time where they believe the gunshots were fired at around 3:53 a.m. And the bodies were then discovered about 10 a.m. by law enforcement.
Oh, okay.
So that 7 hours, they weren't in a field. They weren't exposed to. So the physical evidence, if there's body contact with either of the victims, there'll be a full DNA swab of the victim. They'll do the postmortem examination will answer those questions. And they already probably have the basic answers to those questions now,
Right. Right.
minus the toxicology.
Yeah, Olivia's Mimi here. In June 2025, this has come up on our show a bunch of times. Monique and Michael McKee had a domestic case in Franklin County Common Pleas Court to be heard in September 2025. Do you know why and what could be the reason? From all intents and purposes, what we can make out from this is it was a simple clerical error, Jay, that someone literally typed in the wrong letter and it happened to put them on the docket when it was supposed to be someone else's case. So it probably had, in my opinion, minimal effect. But is that how you understood it, Jay?
That is exactly how I understood. I understood that to be a clerk error or a court error where an entry was.
Okay, so we've heard that twice now, that the experts think that opening of the case that back in June and September 2025 was simply a clerical error. I'm not so sure. I'm curious because when we heard that they were looking to locate him for the lawsuit and they couldn't, yesterday we covered it, locate him for one of the lawsuits. I'm wondering if that triggered something in the court documents. Who knows? We really don't know. I'm just guessing as well, but I'm curious.
Made on the docket of their divorce, their 2017 divorce, by accident, when that entry on that docket should have gone on another docket. It's a keystroke, probably mistake, entry mistake. So I don't think.
Maybe not. You know, maybe he has been harassing her, and we don't know.
It is.
I
it is
think there's
possible.
been harassment. I don't know in what form that came, but it was enough that recently. I mean, I'm sure Spencer was confiding in his coworkers, and it sounds like they were confiding in family about this person all of a sudden resurfacing, if you will, in their lives and causing problems.
You know, we joke about STS singles. I've never seen so many women in the chat saying that they are perfectly content being single at home after this story. So maybe we forget STS singles and just carry on as is. Maybe that is the answer.
How about everybody here? Are you guys happy being single? I know I am.
You just need a cat or a dog, and I think you're all set. I like my kids most of the time, and my wife I love most of the time. Attorney, so we're getting to that right now.
I've got a good guy too. So I think there are a few good men around.
There's one or three out there somewhere. Look, Dave Fulton is a catch. Just 3 months before the murders, Michael McKee was named in a medical malpractice lawsuit in Clark County, Nevada. That's Las Vegas. The lawsuit alleges that during vascular surgery, McKee failed to properly supervise a physician's assistant, leading to an 8.6-inch catheter fragment breaking off inside a patient's leg. Doesn't sound fun. Causing pain, bleeding, swelling, long-term damage. Process servers repeatedly failed to locate him. And here is the attorney weighing in on this in Las Vegas for this specific patient. Let's listen.
Physicians who are sued for the first time take it very personally and heavily, and it can be devastating.
But Laird can't say how Dr. McKee responded. Since September of last year, McKee was unable to be found.
Dr. McKee almost really became a phantom, a ghost, if you will.
That's what it seemed like.
In this declaration of due diligence filed with Nevada's Clark County District Court, Laird's process server lists at least 9 times of trying to track down Dr. McKee. He said McKee's address provided by the medical group doesn't exist.
There is no such street. There is no such address.
McKee's phone number listed with the Nevada Medical Board led to a fax tone from a fax machine. In October, Laird's team reached out to the other surgeons listed in the case, McKee's former colleagues, for the vascular surgeon's current contact.
What did Dr. Caravella say?
He said he has no idea where Dr. Michael McKee is now, said he just disappeared.
Don't they leave some sort of contact?
So they tend to be highly responsible people. They're not the kind of people who just disappear suddenly. And this was very surprising to us. Shocking. If you listed out the people who would likely be to be accused of committing a double homicide, a fully trained vascular surgeon would be at the bottom of my list.
Be at the top of his list right now. Dr. Lenore Walker, there's a second lawsuit where the plaintiff's name is Guilherme Schwanz, an interesting name, Guilherme Schwanz, and the defendants there, the same Dr. Caravella, who we just heard of, but also Michael David McKee. The filing on that day, and this is a huge thanks to Vesper Martini. I think she's the only one that I know of who actually has uncovered this. So you might only be hearing that here thanks to Vesper Martini. But the second lawsuit, same deal. It sounds like a malpractice suit, but what this guy's MO is, he was giving bogus addresses. You heard that they got a fax tone. Does this, I don't know, does this play does this comport to the person that we're finding out more about now?
Well, it could possibly suggest that he's starting to unravel mentally, and become less controlled with his impulses. It's hard to know, but certainly that doesn't sound like consistent behavior with his life for the last 10 years. It sounds like something was happening during these last few months with these lawsuits. So it may not be that the lawsuit precipitated the decompensation, but rather he's decompensating and getting into trouble. So we just don't know which way it is.
Yeah, and Dr. Taboris, first of all, someone asked, what does El Dico mean? I don't know if there is a meaning. I do know it's Hungarian because my mother's first language is Hungarian. But how did the question was, where I just lost the question. Oh, does the collapse in your professional career, Dr. Tabori, does that necessarily equate to a collapse in your personal life? In other words, was this a trigger for this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you've identified yourself as a doctor and as a surgeon for your entire life, and now it's starting to unravel, of course, this is a trigger, especially if you've been behaving not so well for, your entire life. And then this happens and, your ego gets ripped away. Absolutely. So yeah, I think that is definitely 100% a trigger. And then, 2 cases on top of that, not just one, but 2. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Shout out to Judy Herbert here. Thank you so much for gifting 10 memberships. Dr. Walker, was that you? Jump right in.
No.
Oh, I thought you were going to jump in. Okay. Jay, let me ask you from an investigator.
2 lawsuits. We heard about 1, but 2, that's got to be weighing on, it had to be weighing on him. Interesting.
Standpoint, as the lead detective in this case, do you have to go out to Vegas and speak to people who had this guy as a patient who are now suing him for malpractice? Is that something that you have to do?
I think you're going to want to add that information to the file. I don't think it's the kind of thing that you have to be doing at the beginning, but at some point they're going to have to maybe have Vegas detectives go out and do the interviews on as a courtesy, and maybe not necessarily the patients, because I think his interaction with the patient was just to cause the injury or the harm. But the people that you really want to talk to are going to be these coworkers, because they're observing him. If this is spiraling for him, if this is abnormal for him to have these alleged errors during his performance of his medical functions, you're going to want to know what kind of things he was talking about. And that would be the coworkers in Chicago, and probably the coworkers in Vegas, and the coworkers in Virginia. I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover there. And luckily, I mean, while he's in custody, those are the kind of interviews you can go do once you have the body. Those are kind of follow-up, parallel type things. It could be good information. It could be like we heard yesterday. You've heard snippets out in the media. He's a good guy. He was always a great guy. There's going to be people offering that information as well, but you got to get it all. So yeah, I think those interviews will be conducted, but they're not key to the meat of the case. But it's nice to fill in the blank areas on the canvas while you're painting this picture. And those are the kind of interviews that will serve that purpose.
Okay, we're going to switch it up here, and we are going to listen here to Jesse Weaver.
Or actions with respect to McKee's medical license. He doesn't seem to have a criminal record. He apparently had a hunting license at one point in time out in Ohio. So as we await McKee's appearance in Franklin County Court on the murder charges, where, by the way, I believe the evidence will have to be reviewed by a grand jury for a formal indictment, we got to get into the theories on motive, defense, evidence, any speculation. That's what I want to get into right now. Okay, so now I want to bring on friend of the show. We haven't seen him in a while, a renowned criminal defense attorney, Brian J. McMonigal from McMonigal, Perry, McHugh, Mishak, and Davis. Thank you so much for taking the time, Brian. It's really, really good to see you. This is a massive case. This is a massive case. I mean, well, first I have to ask, why haven't authorities said much about the evidence? I mean, even today, they had to confirm that they believe McKee is the person in the surveillance footage. It seems to me the only definitive piece of evidence they may have, A, maybe the surveillance footage, B, the car, which we'll talk about, and now they're reporting that they recovered a weapon that was potentially tied to the homicides. Why are they not revealing a lot of evidence right now?
I asked the same question to myself when I looked at the affidavit of probable cause justifying his arrest. It was absent any facts that would suggest there's enough evidence to support a charge. A lot of times it's because there's going to be a grand jury in place and they're trying to keep that information undercover. Sometimes they want to make sure that there's only going to be information out there that the killer would know in the event that they're going to try and talk to him or interview him. And sometimes it's because it's developing. They may not have DNA yet. They may not have fingerprints yet. They may not have done the kind of searching and investigating that they're going to need to do in the months and weeks and months ahead. But it's a good question. I mean, usually they're going to give you, hey, listen, we have the smoking gun, we have the video. And here it looks like they can put him at the scene, and that's about all.
And I'll get to that in a minute. I do have to say the fact that they have moved forward and upgraded this to aggravated murder. So you're saying under Ohio law, prior calculation and design, you're saying this was premeditated, you're saying this was planned. To me, and by the way, they're trying to do that to get life in prison without the possibility of parole. It seems to me, on its face, yeah, somebody shows up to that place, that home, no forced entry, allegedly kills them, then goes away. Yeah, even in that stuff, I could say, yeah, that shows premeditation. Or is there something else that they have? Some evidence of planning, some evidence of forethought, some evidence that he knew he was going to take this trip or planning this trip, if the evidence is true, that they haven't revealed yet, that would support aggravated murder, that would support prior calculation and design. I feel they have something else.
I can guarantee that. What they've done, and they're probably still doing is calling through phone records. They're looking for text messages. They're looking for phone evidence that will support their finding of motive. They'll be tracking his phone. They'll check all of his cell tower information to see how long he was in Columbus that particular day, whether he had been there on previous days to surveil the area. And all of that's going to be on his phone. I can guarantee that this case is going to be completely circumstantial, but it'll be circumstantial evidence that may be really a guillotine for him if it provides the kind of motive evidence that one would think would have led up to this horrible tragedy.
And do you think that there are online activity, messages, chat, social media to try to connect, to see what his movements are, but also to see if he had any communication with Monique, his ex-wife, any communication regarding her? Because that's a big question, right? Like after they were divorced and he was out of their lives by all accounts. I do wonder in the months and the weeks and the days leading up, was there some sort of connective tissue between him and the Tepes?
They're clearly looking at that, and I would assume they have that. And if they don't, then what they'll do is they'll look at him. Has there been a deterioration of his mind? Has he gone into depression? They'll talk to people around him. They probably already have. Why after 7 or 8 years of a divorce, suddenly is there the kind of anger and animosity that would lead to this atrocious killing? And my guess is, as I said before, this kind of conduct usually leads to situations where law enforcement aren't going to have a hard time finding it. He got a car, he brought it there, he returned to Ohio. Whatever he was thinking, whatever was in his mind wasn't well thought out at all. And my guess is there's going to be just a dearth of clues that they're going to find in his phone, his computer. He may have even Googled, what did he search? What was he looking for? Did he recently purchase a gun? How long did he have the gun? They've already probably matched caliber to any gun that was in his ownership at the time. So again, going to be a heavily laden circumstantial evidence case by a prosecutor's office in Franklin County that is very good at what they do.
And look, if the allegations are true, you can have somebody attack an ex-spouse a month after a divorce or 8 years after a divorce. Sometimes it proves, and sometimes you have no idea what's going on in somebody's mind, which is why prosecutors don't have to prove motive, right? They don't have to prove the why. It helps tell the story. But a big question here is going to be the why. I mean, that's so strange. And when you're hearing reports from family members who you have at least this account from the brother-in-law and then some reporting about what the family in general may have known, that it wasn't unexpected that McKee may have been responsible, that McKee was going to be arrested. I imagine the family is deep in this investigation and are being questioned by authorities.
Sounds like they knew from the jump. And it read like that. It certainly wasn't a forced entry. So then why does this assassination occur? And the family from the beginning must have been pointing the finger in his direction. What's his explanation for being there on the night of the murder, in a town that he does not live in, and then returning right away? So there's a lot of problems that he's going to have to solve, and his defense team is going to have to solve. But I think you're right. I think the family pointed law enforcement right away in this direction.
Well, the no forced entry, if that is true, does that mean he was invited in? Does that mean there wasn't a conflict at first? Does that mean that the Tepes expected him to be there, or that he shows up and they invite him in? Because it'd be very different if someone had broken a window or charged through the door. No forced entry. Is that something that will complicate the case for prosecutors, help the defense in any way? Talk to me about that.
I think it helps the prosecutors, quite frankly, because if it's not forced entry, then why are you letting somebody in? You know, it's always a friend, it's somebody you know. Here is an ex-husband. What are you doing here? And then does he start blasting immediately when he comes in the house? So the lack of forced entry from the beginning told me that they were looking right away for somebody that he or she knew. Is it a former spouse? Is it a lover? Is it somebody that could do the unthinkable here? So I think the lack of forced entry helps the prosecution far more than the defense, I will tell you.
And it's so early in this investigation, but you do wonder if there's an admission, I did show up to their place, I did come in, and then there's a debate about what happened in that house and what the evidence would bear. That's going to be interesting. I do want to go to the evidence that we seem to have. You talked about how there's not a ton of details with respect to the surveillance footage or how they were able to track the car to him and track it all the way back to Rockford, Illinois. But if that is in fact the same car, and it was there in during that critical time period, and then it's all the way back in Illinois, and they track it to him, I mean, I guess what are some ways the defense can attack that kind of evidence? Because it seems pretty strong.
Yeah, it's a headache for them. I'm guessing that there's probably no real ID from the video that I saw. So they'll attack identification. They'll attack the fact that there's no real proof that he himself was driving the car or he himself ever entered the dwelling. They'll attack the lack of DNA, if there's a lack of DNA. And I'm sure that they've gone all over that house and tried to find DNA. They'll check the car. Is there DNA in the car? And again, what's the defense going to do? I mean, we remember the Simpson trial at the very inception. There was no way he could win this case. No, I'm not saying he's going to have the dream team defending him, but they will look at DNA. They will look at the lack of evidence that he was actually in the home. Being there and being in the general proximity of the dwelling isn't enough to get a conviction. Did he make any statements? Again, they're going to look at that phone. They'll be able to track that phone. Now, was he smart enough, if he did do it, to leave the phone home when he went? Because if he didn't, that phone tracks him every step of the way. And I think what you said previously, Jess, is they're going to be looking for motive evidence. Why did he suddenly do this after 7 or 8 years? What triggered it? Was there some kind of an argument? Was there some issue? Did something happen at his employment? Did he lose employment? Was he losing employment? Did it lead him to a dark place? These are going to be the questions that are going to have to be answered. And in the absence of those answers, again, the defense is going to say it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Don't tell me he was in Columbus. Tell me more.
And do you think that this is something that authorities already know? Because they won't address motive. They won't address it at this point in the investigation. You clearly explained why. They don't want to compromise in any way, particularly if there isn't a grand jury indictment yet. Do you think they have an idea of what the motive is here? And how you talk about the search for it. It is important for the prosecutors to tell that story to jurors.
Hello, everybody. Put down below, what do you think the motive is? I think most of you seem to be indicating you think it's just pure revenge, pure anger and revenge. Do you think that's what it was? Let me know down below.
100%. I mean, you don't have to prove motive, but juries want a motive. Yeah. Believe me, they want a motive. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've never met a jury that didn't want a motive, particularly in a murder case. And I do think they know. I don't think they would have indicted this fella if all they had was the car. You mentioned a gun. That's a big piece. I mean, if they can get a gun that matches caliber to whatever they took out of the body or any of the bullets that they found there at the scene, that's game, set, match. If you have that, I don't know that they do, but if they have him recently purchasing a firearm of the same caliber or ownership of a firearm of the same caliber, and he's there and it's not forced entry, you got a rough road.
What about this reporting that what was going on in his life, aside from the fact that he was going to multiple states? I mean, again, no criminal record, no disciplinary action with respect to his medical license. You heard authorities earlier on say there was no reports of any abuse between him and Monique, but he was apparently facing this lawsuit regarding medical malpractice. He was added to a lawsuit in September. You try to get into the mind of the suspect and what has been going on. He is innocent until proven guilty, of course. But how much is that going to be relevant? How much is that going to be part of this story? How much is that going to make its way into a potential trial?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, you're going to have to explain not only motive, but what brought him to that dark place. And and just looking at some of the footage I've seen in terms of his affect, et cetera, they're going to paint him as a guy who literally became broken in his life, who became desperately depressed because of a lack of success and failure that was happening in his life, and that he at some point attributed all of that to her. And that was his motive. If I'm a prosecutor right now, that's exactly where I'm headed to cause the bow to break. And when the bow breaks, you do things that are incomprehensible. And I'm assuming that that's the direction they're going to take.
I also think, and this is purely based on the reporting, the injury sustained by these two, the idea that he was apparently shot multiple times and she was shot right in the chest. Do those kind of injuries tell you a piece of the story and give you an indication about who might have done this?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I don't think it necessarily tells you who did it, but what it tells you is one of two things. One, that he wanted that trigger man wanted both of them dead, or that somebody tried to come to somebody's aid in the course of the killing and got killed themselves. They're not really going to worry about that because, whether he wanted to kill them both or wanted to kill one and the other got in the way or tried to save her or she tried to save him, whatever the case may be. If they can put him inside that residence, if they can tie a gun to him, and if they can string along enough circumstantial evidence of motive, it's going to be a very difficult case for him to win.
And I think you're 100% right. It shows intent to kill, the placement of the bullet, the placement of the bullets, placement of the wounds, right? That's the key there. I imagine in Ohio, and I believe they have a preliminary hearing process where the prosecution would have to present the evidence that they believe is sufficient to show that there's probable cause to support the charges for this case to move forward towards trial. Isn't a preliminary hearing the time when we learn a lot more information about the case? We learn a lot more about the evidence in a case?
There's no doubt about that. Even though it's a prima facie standard, they will certainly put evidence on. Now, Ohio is, as I understand it, a grand jury state. So sometimes when you have a grand jury indictment, there won't be a preliminary hearing. Mm-hmm. Many states that have indictment by grand jury, unlike the state I'm in Pennsylvania, you don't get preliminary hearings. They say, listen, a grand jury indicted you, you're going to trial. And they'll turn over grand jury transcripts and you'll get discovery and you'll get evidence. But if a grand jury indicts them, I'm not always sure, and I'll check this, whether Ohio compels a preliminary hearing or not. But you are right. If there is one, it's really your first chance at testing proof. It's your first chance at cross-examining and examining the evidence they have.
Do you think they're with the grand jury right now, or not now, but do you think they're getting prepared to go into the grand jury? Okay, we're switching gears now. Into the medical malpractice lawsuits.
The same attorney that all of Michael McKee's other cohorts in this practice hired in the wake of this malpractice lawsuit. Is this what Michael McKee was undergoing that drove him a little nuts? And why did he ignore basically this lawsuit? Now, Michael McKee worked for the Las Vegas Surgical Associates, LLP. This was a surgical group out of Las Vegas, Nevada. They offered general, bariatric, colon, rectal, vascular surgery, known for advanced techniques. They faced some kind of $20,000 settlement for misrepresented claims. Since Michael McKee is a vascular surgeon, it makes sense that he would work here. But in the wake of trouble, he just disappeared. So according to this ABC On Your Side article that just came out, he just disappeared. They tried to track this man down. They could not serve him with this lawsuit. And mind you, what I've learned is doctors might face a lot of malpractice lawsuits. This isn't the only one I've seen. I've saw other paperwork for some other malpractice lawsuit. Generally, doctors, they get attorneys to fight for them. But of all the defendants listed on this lawsuit, Michael David McKee is the only one who doesn't have a lawyer listed next to his name. The plaintiff has a lawyer in this medical malpractice lawsuit. The practice has a lawyer, Las Vegas Surgical Associates, LLP. Even the physician's assistant has a lawyer. The other doctor has a lawyer, but not Michael David McKee. Apparently, maybe he believed he could just get away with it, forget the lawsuit was ever out there. He's the only one that never filed an answer. We'll go through it all. And I'm waiting on more details because I've requested public records for this lawsuit. According to ABC 6 On Your Side, vascular surgeon Michael McKee, accused in the high-profile double murder in Columbus, he managed to evade this malpractice lawsuit for many months, I should say, before the alleged crime. ABC 6 Investigates uncovered nearly a dozen failed attempts to serve him with the lawsuit. It originated in Nevada. It was filed by the Las Vegas lawyer Dan Laird. He says Michael McKee failed to train this physician's assistant who injured a patient at the Las Vegas Surgical Associates, LLP. This happened in 2023. No wonder this lawsuit was filed in 2024. So Laird told the publication attempts to serve McKee were thwarted. Fake addresses, questionable state-issued phone numbers. That's very strange to me that he tried to address his problems in this way. That's very strange. Why didn't he train the physician's assistant? Did he believe she was beneath him or what? This is what Laird said. The address that was given to us by the surgery group that he worked for turned out to be a fake address. It was an address that doesn't exist. He's so silly, like he could get away with it that way. Ugh. McKee's disappearance was noted months before he was arrested in Chicago for the murders of his ex-wife, Monique Tepe, and her new husband, Spencer, in their Columbus home in December. Laird's process servicer documented at least 9 attempts to locate McKee, with the address provided by the medical group proving non-existent and his phone number issued with the state medical board, leading to a fax machine. So he gave them a fax number instead of a real phone number. You could call and speak with him. Laird's efforts to contact McKee through former colleagues, including Dr. Peter Caravella, who is also listed in the medical malpractice suit, were unsuccessful. Indeed, we will see all their attempts to let this man know, McKee, no, look, you got to address this lawsuit. You just can't pretend it's not there. He said he has no idea where Dr. Michael McKee is now. Laird recounted from his response in October. He just disappeared. McKee's Nevada medical license expired last summer. ABC 6 Investigates asked Laird, is it a common practice for a surgeon to leave contact information with their former employers due to consultations regarding patient care? Makes sense. I guess a caring doctor would. I'm wondering if McKee was already losing it last summer. Well, the lawyer Laird said they tend to be highly responsible people. They're not the kind of people who just disappeared suddenly, and this was very surprising to us. Despite tracking McKee's current medical license to Rockford, Illinois in November, repeated phone calls made by Laird went unanswered. Laird was unaware of the Columbus murders until ABC 6 Investigates informed him this week. Wow. Shocking. He said, if you listed out the people who would likely be accused of committing a double homicide, a fully trained vascular surgeon would be at the bottom of my list. Laird told ABC Investigates that he also found it unusual that an attorney did not contact him on McKee's behalf, who would be funded by medical malpractice insurance. Laird is now determining if McKee did not extend this insurance when he left Las Vegas. If he did not, Laird calls the action unusual due to unforeseen complications or claims by former patients. Why would McKee let his medical insurance lapse? I don't know. He would know the big responsibility doctors have, especially being a target of a lot of medical malpractice lawsuits, whether right or wrong. It says in October, a judge granted a declaration of due diligence in the malpractice case, allowing McKee to be served via a newspaper notice. And I've been searching for that too. I'll show you the docket. This is only the second time in Laird's 12-year career that he has had to resort to such measures. Attempts to contact the medical group where McKee worked were unsuccessful as no one returned calls to ABC 6. They should have a different name by now. And the name of this Las Vegas practice literally changed on December 30th. We will look at the court docket. So it should no longer be Las Vegas Surgical Associates LLP. December 30th, we'll see 2025, they were allowed to change their name. So I'm waiting for more documentation. But my biggest takeaway too is why McKee wouldn't train the physician's assistant. So that's what the lawsuit's about, who injured a patient allegedly until it's proven. Anyway, let's start here. With this case information, we can see all the defendants, the case number. It was filed May 17th, 2024. Obviously, if this particular plaintiff feels they were injured, it stemmed from a physician's assistant allegedly not being trained by Dr. McKee. By the following year, 2024, they were ready to file their lawsuit. So we see the plaintiff, and there's Laird, retained this attorney Laird, who spoke with ABC 6 on your side. One of the defendants, the physician's assistant, Andrea, retained this attorney, Marjorie E. Crastus. We see the actual company, the Las Vegas Surgical Associates, retaining the same attorney. We see the defendant, Peter Caravella, the doctor who spoke with ABC 6, claiming the PA wasn't trained by McKee, retaining the same woman. Everyone retains this Marjorie woman, except look who's out here twisting in the wind, Michael David McKee, MD. So we don't have all these details, but May 17th, everything popped off. The complaint was filed. This is 2024. Initial appearance, the complaint, the demand for a jury trial, electronic summons. So by July 1st, 2024, we have a declaration of service. It sounds like this medical group, the company itself, was served. And then we start seeing some of the defendants, of course, chiming in, doing the things they were supposed to do, their lawyer making an appearance for them, another declaration of service. And then by August 9th, 2024, we have an initial appearance for fee disclosure. The defendants, the PA, the Surgical Associates group, and we see the PA answering the plaintiff's complaint. We see the surgical group answering the plaintiff's complaint. All throughout August 2024, they're having case conferences, all that stuff. Hearings are getting rescheduled. It all makes sense. We see the plaintiff's lawyer and we see the defendant, at least three of them. That's the medical group, Dr. Peter, and then the PA. They all have Marjorie, the attorney, representing them. However, again, Dr. McKee is missing. So things keep going. Scheduling, we move into 2025. Of course, this case isn't going anywhere. This lawsuit isn't going anywhere. Even if Dr. McKee can dip out, he can dip away from Nevada, go to Chicago, buy and purchase that great condo that I won't mention, so YouTube will leave this video up. I had shown the court records when Dr. McKee was arrested, and I showed the Franklin County court records. I can show this, I believe, I hope. I was showing court records like if you hit view here and it had his address, and they did not want that address. So even though I blurred it, they wouldn't put the video back up. But anyway, we see all these notices coming through. Even if Dr. McKee is over in Chicago by now in 2025, purchasing his condo, his penthouse condo, working in Rockford, this problem isn't going to go away. 2025, different people being subpoenaed, apparently another doctor being subpoenaed. Now, this is stuff that I thought maybe this was a problem for Dr. McKee. By July 17th, 2025, there was a motion to amend the complaint. The plaintiff wanted to name and shame these doctors. Basically, it's like, forget putting John Doe, MD, as the defendants, put their real names on the docket, on the court record, and the judge will end up approving that. So if Dr. McKee's reputation was anything to him, I'm sure he wouldn't like seeing his name shown on a different complaint. Then we have notices of hearings, entries, discovery, all this stuff standard on lawsuits. There were oppositions to the motions, blah, 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 notice of intent. There was a motion for leave. Now, finally, by September 23rd, 2025, there was an order granting the plaintiff's motion. Look, we can replace that John Doe MD with real names. That's why we can see these doctors and the PA's name on these complaints. So the complaint was amended. Now notice it's September 2025, even though Dr. McKee is off in Chicago and working in Rockford, he's making that long commute, he's living in the condo, but was he still stewing over this lawsuit? Why didn't he hire an attorney? Did he run out of money? Did he let his medical malpractice insurance coverage lapse? He was running away, giving fake numbers, all this fake addresses, as if he would never be found. Did he really think that's the way to fix his problem? Was he hoping this problem would just go away? And did he really harm this plaintiff by not training his PA well enough? That's scary. Now, we have some kind of notice of name change here, but the actual firm is going to change its name on December 30th, the exact day of these killings. Let's keep going. Now, down to October, it's getting closer. What kind of life is Dr. McKee living in Chicago?
Is that just a coincidence, everybody, that the firm changed its name the day of the killings? Is there something about the lawsuits that we don't know? Did the firm decide to remove him from their firm? What do you think? Is there something more here?
Chicago. Is he freaking out because he knows this lawsuit is marching towards a jury trial at some point? Is he going to have to answer to this? Is he freaking out? Is this the thing that set him over the edge? Is he not getting along with his coworkers? I mean, obviously things didn't go well in Las Vegas. Like they say, wherever you go, there you are. You can't run away from yourself. So if he took his problem over to Chicago with him, I'm sure life wasn't much better there. Now, I noticed everyone was answering except McKee. So October 13th, the PA is answering, it's her lawyer, of course, answering the amended complaint. The surgery group is answering. There's a declaration of due diligence, extending discovery. Look at this. Even Dr. Peter is answering, same lawyer. So the lawyer is representing all three, just not McKee. Why wouldn't he get this lawyer to represent him as well? He must not have had the money, or he didn't take care of the medical malpractice insurance to cover it. A lot of doctors have that just for this instance when.
Or is he just too arrogant, just like in his divorce, and he thought he could handle it himself? What do you think?
There's a problem, there's a mistake, there's malpractice, maybe there isn't, but They need the coverage to answer lawsuits like this, while they can continue to do their job, focus on medicine, and let the lawyer handle it. Why didn't McKee do what his coworkers did? As October 2025 is ending, I found this interesting. It says Dr. Peters' demand for a jury trial. He's the defendant. But I like that maybe he's saying, look, let's take this to trial. Maybe he feels like I'm not settling. Let's take it to trial, and let's see what a jury decides. I found that pretty interesting. It's the defendant, Dr. Peter, demanding a jury trial. And then, of course, it's getting rescheduled because finally we get the mention again of this defendant, Dr. McKee, who is just not answering. I mean, we don't see, basically, we can see what a problem he is by not really seeing his name again in this lawsuit on the docket until we get to November 10th. And look how scary that is. That's the month prior to Monique and Spencer Tepe's homicides. It's scary. So finally, November 10th, this plaintiff is like, look, obviously they must have tried, as we've learned a billion times, to serve him the normal way. A process server can track down a person, and it's that old, you've been served. Let me hand you this envelope. Here's the lawsuit, or let it touch any part of your body and you've been served. Well, by November 10th, they couldn't find McKee. So there's a motion from the plaintiff to say, look, let's serve this guy through the newspapers like the old days. It has to be published and enlarge time for service of process on order shortening time. So obviously, if the process server tried to serve McKee, 9 times? This is a last resort. So they're rescheduling hearings, There's a status check right before Thanksgiving, November 24th, trial resetting, motion for extending time. And here it is. The motion was granted right before Thanksgiving. Plaintiff's motion to serve defendant Michael David McKee, MD, individually by publication and to enlarge time. The judge is like, look, okay, you guys have tried. Go ahead, serve them by publication. And I'm still seeking the record on exactly where that was published. We won't see more info about this until January 2026. So again, all the pending motions, amended order setting the time of the jury trial. Let me not skip over this. I found this fascinating. December 30th, 2025, there's a notice of change of firm name. So I don't know what this Las Vegas Group Associates LLP is known as now. Perhaps I can find that.
I'm just reading here to see if there's anything removing the Dr. McKee. Interesting. Let's see.
But I couldn't help but notice that date, December 30th, 2025, the same day, unfortunately. The Tepes were gunned down in their home where they should have been safe, allowed to raise their young, beautiful children and grow old and become grandparents and remain in love and raise a happy family. No, that was the same day they were struck down. Now, unbeknownst, I'm sure, to these doctors and everything out west, their firm name was changing. I found that curious, just the same day. And now, January 6, 2026, there was the order granting that plaintiff's motion to serve Michael David McKee individually by publication. So, did they print it several times? Was it in the Las Vegas Journal or Review or the Legal News or what? I'm still searching for if they've actually done that. By now, at this point, obviously, the murders had happened, but Dr. McKee had not been arrested yet. He was not arrested until January 10th, Saturday. So 4 days later, he would be arrested. So wherever they served him, when they printed his name, did anyone see it? Did anyone in the medical community see it? This is right prior to his arrest. Now, there would have been this year his jury trial. Now, I bet you they can serve him now because they.
Well, that would have been a trigger for him had they gone ahead and put it in the newspaper for somebody that was looking to hide that appears to be evading the law. Would that have triggered him? Interesting.
You know where he is, of course. July 13th, 2026, it initially said jury trial firm, as if that date was firm. It's been vacated. It's been vacated. Why? Per stipulation and order. Because I'm sure by now everyone involved in this lawsuit knows, oh, Dr. McKee has been arrested. He's been extradited to Ohio to stand trial eventually, if he really does enter that not guilty plea. And if he has to stand trial for the murders, I'm still here. If he has to stand trial for the murders, yes, I see why they vacated this. Because They probably won't have Dr. McKee dealing with this malpractice suit. And I'm not being insensitive to the victim here. This person may have truly, of course, been hurt due to a lack of training from McKee not training his PA. But obviously, the murder case would take precedence over this malpractice lawsuit. So I can see why it was vacated. They set up an April 28th, 2027 next year. Status check, trial readiness. What'll happen next year? Pre-trial conference, June 9th. And then they're saying now, July 12th, 2027. Okay, this jury trial firm, chances are dollars to donut, that'll get pushed back too, unless somehow they can go ahead with this case without Dr. Michael David McKee. Can they? What'll happen with a malpractice lawsuit when one of the parties is accused of double murder? You want everyone to get their justice. You want this plaintiff to get their justice. Everyone. It's very sad. The poor PA, if she had to deal with a seemingly psychopathic Dr. McKee who wouldn't train her, allegedly, and deal with all of this. We'll see what happens. Let's close with Proverbs 17:15, acquitting the guilty and condemning the innocent. The Lord detests them both. Let's hope the Tepes get justice. Another bit of news we're learning via Fox News is that McKee wasn't indeed very nice to Monique when he was married to her. In fact, they're going to call him emotionally abusive. It says that McKee spent nearly a decade moving from job to job across the country. A former coworker said the stint in Nevada marked the start of a downward spiral that preceded the alleged killings. The fact that they are both dead is not alleged, but, whether you're going to call it a murder, a killing, a homicide, it all matters. It matters if Michael David McKee can be proven guilty for those murders. So now Rob Mislaw is telling NBC their family quickly believed McKee was somehow involved. He was an emotionally abusive person when they were together. That is all I know. That's what Rob knew. And of course, Rob could not tip his hand about what he suspected because he wants to see justice. He wouldn't want McKee to take off and disappear before authorities could arrest him.
We're going to switch it up now. We're going to move into John Kelly, the profiler.
Thanks for tuning in, John Kelly, profiler, and welcome to today's show. And I'm going to tell you something right now. We're going to get into it and hang in there with us because and I'm talking about Dr. Michael McKee, did not spare the children, and we're going to get into that, okay? What he's done is unbelievable. But the one thing I want to do is send our deepest condolences out to the friends and family of the Tepes. We're very sorry for what they've gone through. God bless them. And in no way did they deserve this. And in no way did these children deserve this. There's no question about it. The other thing I want to talk about, and I have to bring out, is the disclaimer. Okay? Michael McKee is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. As far as I'm concerned, this guy's a wacko. I said that yesterday. Some people were sending over comments calling him a nut butt. What can I tell you? Take your choice. Take your pick. I like either one. Okay? But he's innocent until proven guilty regardless of what.
A nut butt.
The other point I want to try and make is that, if you like what we're doing, please give us a nice like. Hit that like button. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe. We love your subscriptions. We love to have you as part of the family. And comment. We love to have your comments. Also, I really want to introduce our guest today, Pam Bogart. She's fantastic. She's an investigator for probation. She was for over 30 years. Very sharp, really good researcher, great investigator. And we're really thrilled to have her, bottom line. Really thrilled to have her. And of course, we have Leah jumping in, my producer, and she's very interested in this case. And Leah is got some really, really interesting questions that I think you'll find interesting, and you may want to comment on. Again, we love your comments. Also, we have another channel out there called Thrive. It's for addictive illness. It's free. Feel free to use it. It's loaded with educational information on anybody or any family that's having a problem with addictive illness. With all that being said, Leah, let me start with you because I know you have a question you're dying to ask me.
Hey, John. Yes. Well, thank you for having me. Glad to have you and Pam on. First thing, though, elephant in the room. You say that this Dr. McKee, he did not do anything to these children. He spared the kids. But what do you mean by that in the title? that he really
See,
did
everybody's talking about, well, he spared the kids. He spared the kids. Thank God he spared the kids. Yes, thank God he spared the kids' lives. But he orphaned those children. He orphaned those children. You want to talk about narcissism, and you want to talk about, narcissism in proxy. Okay. I mean, narcissistic proxy. Take a look at what he did. Okay. By orphaning those children, he set them up to live the life he grew up in, because he was orphaned and he was put up for adoption. Okay. I don't know if I would say he was orphaned. He was put up for adoption. All right. So he grew up in that situation where he was adopted. Obviously, it took some toll on him, because this guy became a very, very stringent and strict narcissist and went about his business. But to the end point being, from what we understand on the allegations, he doesn't want anything to do with his family. Okay. And that's something Pam brought up early on. And we want to dive into that. But you see what he did? He left those kids without a mother or father. He orphaned them. So now, does that mean they have to be adopted? Of course, somebody has to adopt them, whether they stay in the family and keep the name or they go to a different family. Somebody has to care for those kids. Very, very simple. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. I think he wanted to set those kids up to somehow suffer the life he suffered, being adopted and growing up without a mother and father. Narcissism by proxy. He took it out on those kids. I'm telling you. Those are just my feelings. Nobody else is talking about it. The only place you're going to hear about it's here for now, but we'll see. We'll see if it catches interest.
That's interesting. It makes you wonder where he came from. What was his early life and his life with his family like? I don't know. Pam, do you want to talk about that a bit more?
I don't know much about his early life, except the fact that he was adopted at, I believe, 2 months. He was like 2 months old when he got it, which is the age that I would say most kids do get adopted, right? From infancy to, 2 months or, But yeah, he was the only child of these people also. They didn't have any other children. It was just him. And he went to Catholic schools, and then he went to Ohio State and did his undergrad and went to medical school there, and then did his residency in Virginia. That's, as far as I know about, his upbringing. But I know he's estranged from his family. I have heard that on several different news channels.
Interesting.
But I was going to say one more thing, though, not about him, but Leah and John, what do you think about the fact that one of the children was 4? What if she saw his face? She could identify him.
I hope so.
But what I'm saying is, thank God he spared her life. But I mean, was he not thinking about that? That's kind of stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But again, the trauma.
Right.
We don't know the trauma that is imposed on these children, because, childhood is so complicated. I mean, you have trauma, like with the 1-year-old, even before memory. You can be traumatized before memory, but the body never forgets, and still carry that right on through your life. Okay. Now, for instance, when I take a look at him, right? I mean, a couple months before he ended up getting adopted or whatever, I don't know if there was an attachment disorder. I don't know if there's going to be an attachment disorder with these 2 children. I don't know. I would assume there's going to be, because when you separate an infant from its biological mother, from their biological mother, okay, and father, but mother most completely, most assuredly, okay, there is going to be a problem. When will that problem arise? It may be 20, 30 years later. But what is it when you separate them? It's abandonment. Okay, they're being abandoned for whatever reason by their mother. He was abandoned by his mother because she gave him up for adoption. All right. He's abandoned through murder by these 2. I'm sorry. He's abandoned, these children. I'm sorry. These children are abandoned by murder because of McKee. They're abandoned from their mother and father because of him.
Right. And he also probably feels abandoned by, in a delusional way by Monique, because she filed for divorce, right?
No question about it.
Yeah.
No question about it. So he's abandoned by his biological mother. He's abandoned by Monique. Put it all together. But the narcissism by proxy, to drip that down onto these two children.
What do you guys think? Do you think he was trying to hurt the kids? There's no doubt these kids will suffer. Hopefully, with a lot of therapy and counseling, and their ages being a blessing, they'll be, taught to learn that they weren't abandoned by their parents. But what do you think? Was this part of his plan to seek vengeance on the kids?
And not kill them, thank God for that, because hopefully they can work through everything they've been through and any childhood trauma they may have suffered from this incident. Bottom line is, we won't know. Time will have to tell with that. But he set them up to live the same life as he lived growing up, where they would be orphans or adopted or whatever, by somebody else, and they would have to grow up, not with their biological parents. They're not going to grow up with their biological parents because he killed them, just like he didn't grow up with his biological parents. And it seems hatred there flustered. Talk about that, Pam. He doesn't want anything to do with them, right? Or they don't want anything to do with him or something?
With his parents? Well, I don't know much about the relationship. I read somewhere that the parents do know about all this and they're kind of devastated, but it didn't talk about anything about the fallout, like why it happened, But going back to the whole family thing, I'm thinking, it's around, this happened all around Christmas time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, she wound up having, I'm talking about Monique now, the very thing that he wanted, the perfect relationship and a beautiful family.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's probably very jealous of that, or probably, was very jealous of that. And he was probably seething about that.
Oh, I really believe that. What do you think, Leah? Think he was really, really angry and enraged over seeing them have such a nice relationship?
I do. And that makes me want to bring up too, Pam, you had shown us earlier the video, like their wedding video that's posted on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he saw that too or watched that?
Well, Leah, that came out, and when I looked at the date, that was released by her brother-in-law. So in other words, her sister's husband. And it was released in 2021, right? On YouTube. But their anniversary was coming up, their 5-year anniversary. So maybe it could have been released around Christmas time. It could have been put out there on somebody's Facebook page. And I believe he was probably in some way trolling her or stalking her, whether it be through social media or whatever, and yeah, I'm sure he probably saw that. And can you imagine? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Leah.
No, you're good. Well, you mentioned stalking. I mean, how did he get in the house too? You wonder.
Exactly. That is a mystery. That's a mystery. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. I don't know. It's really interesting. What do you think, John?
I don't know. I don't know if somebody let him in or somehow he's a big guy, but somehow he crawled through a lower back window or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Pepes, they were just such Tepes. I'm sorry. They're such beautiful people. And, they give their heart to anybody. I don't know if they forgot to lock the door or if he came to the door crying or carrying on and they felt sorry for him, they let him in and he took advantage of that. Because this guy here, let me tell you something. I mean, he is, as far as I'm concerned, really, no empathy kind of guy. I mean, this guy, as far as I'm concerned, is a serial killer and a psychopath. I don't care if he killed 2 people at the same time, not over a period of time. You kill 2 people, you're serial, as far as I'm concerned, and
what do you think was the actual trigger, Leah or John, that actually put him over the edge? Because we're talking about a marriage that ended in 2017 and we're here.
I think that there's a couple things that could have put him over the edge. I think it could be the constant trouble that he has with friends and family. I mean, if you look at this guy, I mean, he's being rejected by just about everybody in his life. I mean, he's been to all these hospitals, he's been to all these different states, and he's just being constantly, rejected. And then you have this insurance suit going on. I don't know how much of a role that plays, that's playing with this. But, rejection is another word for abandonment.
Mhm.
Rejection is another, term for abandonment. And the more he's rejected, the more he's feeling abandoned. So this may be just building up and building up and building up and building up. And, the blame, I'm sure, is going on to Monique. All right. I just really believe that's where the blame is going.
And really to her husband, because if in his mind, maybe if he wasn't in the picture, she would take me back or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing that out,
No, it's an excellent
It's
point.
not that she would, but I mean, like, how people are delusional. They just feel like, how could this person have left me?
Mhm.
I'm sure I could try to get her back.
That's right. That's right. How could she leave me?
Right.
I mean, she loved me. She loved me so much. She bought her own engagement ring. She bought her own wedding ring. I mean, and she should have, I mean, I'm me, and
That's a very odd thing.
here,
What do you think of that, Pam?
Well, I've never heard of such a thing before. Have you?
No. I mean, so
Where
she loved me so much, and this guy took her away from me. That could be it. Or, that's why I can't get along with anybody. That's why I'm rejected by all these people. That's why all these different hospitals I keep leaving, because I can't get along with them. I can't work in the system with them, and it's because of her, because of them, what they did to me. She left me, and now she's together with this guy, and he's part of the problem too. It's not me, it's not me, it's them, and they're going to get punished for it. For all this injustice, all these years, they're going to pay the ultimate price.
I got a question for both you two. So there's the allegations that there was a death threat at some point made to Monique.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Pam told me that. Yeah.
That he I mean, this is just sort of out there. I don't know how much relevance it has or whether it's, true.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that this part I know is true, that one of the relatives spoke out, and they didn't speak out while they didn't know who it was. But after he was arrested, one of the relatives reported to the newspaper that they were not surprised. They kind of, were not surprised that it was him at all. That he was, controlling, and he did bother her. Whether it was recent or not, I don't know. But yeah, I think he kind of I don't know what channel I heard it on. I'm not sure, because I'd like to give credit to it. But I heard that, he wanted to he threatened her, he would move next door to her, in order to, keep an eye on her type of thing, or that he would, that he wouldn't let her live her life. He wasn't going to leave her alone. So I kind of think that a lot of these friends, knew that, that they knew that she was having problems off and on with him, kind of reappearing in the picture. And that's what made them all the more nervous when they couldn't get a hold of him right away.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about it. If you had a friend, right, that, their ex was, kind of inserting themselves in their life and was sort of making threats to them, you'd be concerned, right? If all of a sudden you couldn't find your friend. So
yeah, and what do you think his control issues played into that?
Oh yeah, I think. Well, along with the narcissism, right, comes control.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a reason she left him after 7 months, and I also heard somewhere that she kind of was very reluctant about keeping the engagement going. While she was engaged, she supposedly didn't want to go further with it. So who knows?
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Leah? You think she wasn't having a very good time in that relationship?
It doesn't sound it. I mean, it ended, like you said, after 7 months. So
calling mother and father, get me out of here, right?
Yeah. They did. They came to the house, and they had to move her while he was away. I guess she was afraid he might come home in the midst of it. I would do the same thing. I'd want as many people around me as possible moving my stuff out.
I'm surprised too. I mean, I don't know what kind of security they had on their home.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big concern too. And the other thing is, did you want to talk about Pam, the house? And I don't know. I can bring up a picture of the back of the house.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so curious about how he entered, because
here's the back.
I personally think, I don't know, this is 4:00 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. Who's going to open the door at that time with little kids? And I don't believe that they would open the door. Something being unlocked, possibly, but they had a keypad on the front, right, John? And a Ring doorbell camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I don't know is if they had an alarm system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he entered that house by coming in through a window or even through opening up, let's say they forgot to lock a door.
Yeah.
Now there's two doors, you got the front and the back.
Right.
Let's say they forgot to lock a door. Well, if you've got an alarm system set up, even if you forgot to lock the door, if you got the alarm system on and somebody just goes and opens the door, that alarm system is going to go off.
Yeah, that's so strange.
So I don't understand. I don't know if they had that type of an alarm system. Maybe they just had cameras but didn't have an alarm system. And then if you want to go back to that picture for just a second.
The back of the house?
Yeah. If you look down here over to the left off the back steps going down, you'll see that very small window in the base. Now, that's a big dude. He's a big dude to be crawling through that window. However, lots of times people don't do that. They forget to connect an alarm system to those smaller windows that they may have down, in their basement somewhere. So that's a possibility too. That is the big question. How did he get into the house? How did he get into the house?
I did find out before we went on today that they did a news conference. The mayor of Ohio and the chief, that they took several weapons out of his house.
Mm-hmm.
And that the national, I'm going to get this wrong, the ballistics, some ballistic, what is it, the national, you'd know, John, the N, I can't think of that. NAVIN, is that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
American ballistics, whatever, that something matched, like maybe the shells that were left behind could have matched one of the guns.
It had to be a 9mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could match that right up. It had to be a 9mm. This guy was familiar with guns though since he was a kid. I mean, I did hear that he hunted early on.
Yeah.
So he was proficient. He knew, he understood how to handle guns. There's no question about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's and again, I just look at it and I look at the damage. We've got 2 parents murdered. We've got 2 children orphaned, and we've got 2 children that hopefully have a very full life ahead of them. And how are they going to deal with that, with this kind of, shall we say, attachment disorder and grief, if you will, and trauma, that they have to go through their lives with. I mean, it's just, I think he left them live, but he was very cruel because he's no dummy. This guy's no dummy. He's been through it himself. He knows he was punishing these 2 poor kids. I don't care what anybody says. He may have spared their lives, but he set them up for maybe a lifetime of punishment and torture. We'll see how they, time will tell how they deal with all this trauma and.
Well, thank God they both have family though. They both have a lot of family, which is.
Well, that's what we're going to see. And that's going to be very, very important. Very important. But as we know, it's very hard. And he could even answer this, Mr. McKee, and he is innocent of proven guilty, but it's really very hard to replace your biological mother and father.
True.
It's very hard, and family or not.
Well, that's true.
There's a lot these kids have got to work through as they start to grow older, and I just God bless them. Right? Let's pray for them because they're going to need it. And I just believe this guy, smart enough with the brains he has and working with kids and been through and having gone through what he's been through and everything, he was pretty hip to, well, I'm going to take your mother and father. I didn't have a mother and father, biological mother and father. And I don't even like my mother and father now. I don't even have anything to do with them, my adopted mother and father, even though, I had a good life with them and I went through school and they took good care of me and made sure I was involved in sports and everything else and kept my grades up, but they're not, no. I mean, he's just, carrying this resentment and rage, about from being abandoned and, not focusing on the good life that he had in all directions, only on the negative, abandonment issues. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, going back to the adoption, I'm just thinking, so if you did, everybody handles adoption differently, I guess,
That's right. Absolutely. Everybody's different.
And it doesn't mean that his adopted parents were not wonderful,
That's correct.
For some reason, some people can't get past the fact that their mother rejected them.
Absolutely.
And I wonder how much that ties into her rejecting him. That becomes so big because of his rejection from his mother. When the woman he, decides to really love, he can't see any part he played in it. It's just another big hit again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a term for that too. It's called analytical depression, how it can affect the newborn. And, really, when a child, that we call it an attachment disorder, but it's really a detachment disorder, when the child is detached from the mother. And supposedly, from what you said earlier on, he was detached from his mother for at least a couple of months before he was adopted, correct?
Well, that's the information that's going around.
That's the allegations and hearsay that's out there. But that can be a considerable amount of time for a newborn. Don't forget that newborn is depending on that biological mother to live to survive.
Right.
So there's no question about it.
And then we don't know whether because a lot of adopted children do this. I mean, their adopted parents encourage them to do it. They go and they search for and what if he got rejected yet again? That could happen too.
Yeah, and I wonder if this guy ever even cared enough to search. I think this guy was just so immersed with himself. Did you hear anything about him searching?
No. I'm just thinking in general about people that I know that were adopted that were sort of encouraged to search, for their parents.
Well, that's the healthy thing to do, with children. And there's so many adopted kids do well. But there's a certain percentage of adopted kids that go the wrong way. They don't do well, We do have that as they can't get over that abandonment issue, know.
Okay, we're gonna switch gears again. Let's watch Vinny. Vinny looks really dapper in this interview. He looks great. He did a great job.
To my investigation, the cold-blooded murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe, a young couple with young children who are now orphaned. Here's the story. 5 years ago, Spencer and Monique Tepe were married in a small, intimate wedding inside their beautiful Columbus, Ohio home. And inside that home, they were raising a family, 2 young children, just 1 and 4 years old. Spencer worked about an hour away as a dentist. Colleagues say he loved his job and showed up on time every day with a big smile, full of energy and ready to serve his patients. So when Spencer did not show up to work on December 30th, his colleagues thought something was wrong. And they were 100% right. Inside the house, behind locked doors, those 2 young children were heard crying. Also inside the house, Spencer and Monique were found shot and killed. No weapon left behind, just shell casings. Now investigators have made an arrest that leaves many questions still unanswered, like how did the killer get inside? And why would he do this to this wonderful family? It was the biggest mystery in the country. And now it has apparently been solved, at least according to investigators and prosecutors in Ohio. Let's bring in Core TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who is live tonight in Columbus, Ohio. Cody, great to see you. Michael McKee is the name of the man who's arrested today. Michael David McKee. What happened in court today?
Well, Vinny, it was a very brief appearance lasting less than 2 minutes, and it took place in Illinois because that's where he was arrested in Rockford, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. Now, we saw him walk into a courtroom, and we also heard him speak alongside his attorney. Take a listen to this.
Can you check the record? Michael McKee, have you had a chance to speak with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's your position at this time?
Yes, at this time, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. McKee, I will assert his right to counsel. I will assert his right to remain silent. And Mr. McKee believes that the most expeditious manner in which he may defend himself against the charges pending in Ohio and to plead not guilty would be to waive his right to an extradition hearing and to have a governor's warrant and to agree to his immediate transportation to Ohio.
So, Vinny, that was McKee's attorney waiving his right to an extradition hearing. But what are the charges that Michael McKee are facing? Well, we do know that the 39-year-old is facing 2 charges of aggravated premeditated murder. Now, he's due back in court on January 19th. The judge did not specify exactly when he would be transferred here to Ohio, but a hearing on the status of that transfer is scheduled for January 19th.
All right, let's talk about the connection now between Michael McKee and the victims here, Spencer and Monique Tepe.
Well, Vinny, we do know that Michael McKee and Monique Tepe were once married a little over a decade ago. That is the connection there. He is the ex-husband of the female victim in this gruesome crime. But first, Vinny, before we get into the marriage and the divorce history, let's talk about who Michael McKee is as a person and not the criminal. Now, we do know that he is a doctor, and his specialty is vascular surgery. And he has active medical licenses in the states of Illinois and California. Now, like both Monique and Spencer Tepe, he graduated from Ohio State University, graduating from their College of Medicine there in 2014. Here's a picture of McKee and Monique Tepe. Now, this is from their wedding day. This is from the New York Post, posted to Facebook by user Phyllis Williams. You see them there. And Vinny, now let's dive into some of that marriage and divorce history here. Now, Michael McKee and Monique Sabatersky, that was her maiden name. That's what she was known as back then. They were married in 2015. But then they divorced after less than 2 years, Vinny, only a year and 10 months together. The reason given was, quote, the parties are incompatible. Now, important to note, they did not have children and they weren't living in the same state, of course, when they divorced. And Vinny, also friends and family gathered for a celebration of life here in Columbus, Ohio on the Sunday after McKee's arrest to remember Spencer and Monique. And of course, we saw people walking inside the funeral home that day to pay their respects. So Vinny, allegedly, is the ex-husband. That ex-husband of a decade ago. Was he still jealous after a decade? Is this pent-up rage still a decade later? This is all alleged, but he is the man in custody now.
Yeah, this is surprising, right? Usually you talk about an ex, you're talking about maybe they're fighting over children, have some sort of a custody battle, or it's a very recent wound. But here, as Cody has said, they got married 10 years ago. The marriage didn't last long at all. By the end, by the time it was finalized, they're not even living in the same state. That brings us to the first question in our investigation tonight, and it is, why would Michael McKee allegedly do it now? Right? Like if it's a fresh, we just got divorced, and now she's seeing someone else, or this is a decade after they got married. Why would he allegedly do it now? Joining me to help answer that question, host of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast, Joel Waldman is with us, and host of the 13th Juror podcast.
Yay, we love Joel. Excuse me. We started this stream watching Joel and Brandy Churchill from the 13th Juror. So let's keep listening. It's a great, Vinny does a great job here. I love this video. We've got more after this one, so keep watching. Probably one of the last days we're going to do the Tepe deep dives. We're going to do something on Monday for sure with this court appearance, but it'll probably be the last next week of the Tepe murders until there's updates for the case. So keep watching.
Guest and crime junkie jury, Brandy Churchill with us as well. Great to see you both. All right, Joel, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts here? And I don't know if you've uncovered anything, but I mean, this seems strange to me because he's an ex, but he's an ex from a decade ago, from a short marriage with no kids.
Yeah, Vinny, we just had a licensed marriage therapist on. I asked that question. Have you ever heard of someone exacting revenge after this many years? And the short answer was no. Something that people both on the web and we have independently uncovered this is the marriage, as you stated, was dissolved back in 2017. They were actually only really together for about 8 months, even though it took about 2 years for the dissolution of marriage. But in 2025, September 2025, just a few months back, something appeared on a docket. And I also had the Deputy Attorney General of Ohio on Surviving the Survivor just now. And we were trying to decipher what that was specifically. Why was this thing on the docket? He couldn't make it out. I still have not been able to make it out. Others have taken jabs at what it might be. I don't know if Brandy has an answer, but that could be a critical piece of evidence as to what triggered him all these years later.
Yeah, that is kind of bizarre. I mean, they're not fighting over kids. You don't accumulate that many assets. You're only together for 8 months. It's a blip on the screen when it comes to family law. This is like one of the easy ones. Brandy, what are your thoughts tonight about why he would allegedly do it now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with Joel. Spouses typically don't kill years later, but when it does happen, it's almost always after a trigger. So this court situation that is popping back up on the docket after, however many years, and I think there was a court date set for September is the one Joel was talking about. So in this case, because of these potential divorce-related matters coming back onto the court docket with a date set, that could have potentially reopened something that was never emotionally resolved. And we have actually seen this before. There was the case of Amy Harwick, where she had dated Gareth Pursehouse like a decade before. There were, reports of her, she was scared of him. He was stalking her, but they had gone on, in their own lives. But when they ran into each other, like a decade later, that triggered something in him. And then he ended up coming back and killing her. And he was actually convicted a few years ago. So that's the only case that I can think of where something happened this much farther. But in that case as well, it's after many years, but there's something that triggers that emotional spark.
Yeah. Well, if, looking back on when they graduated and when the marriage was, there may have been some connection that they had more of a history going all the way back to Ohio State when they were all going to school there. But Joel, the other thing is that this guy's an accomplished surgeon. He's a vascular surgeon. There's not a lot of them in the country. I think there's only a few thousand in the nation that do this type of surgery. That's the other shocking part of this, right? Is that, all right, as a surgeon, can you move on? Can you find someone else? How could this suddenly become the obsession of your life?
Yeah, I think it's always hard to put ourselves into other people's shoes. And I think, you always project. I come from a family of all doctors. I am the black sheep, Vinny. And, I look at them as big successes. And most people are going to look at vascular surgeons as very successful people. He happened to have a difficult time. I mean, he graduated from medical school, but according to all reporting, he was not able to pass his board examination. So it's akin to being a lawyer without a bar exam. You're an attorney, but you can't do certain things. You can't practice. Someone said he was dealing in quote unquote varicose veins as a vascular surgeon. So maybe that was part of it. That's something we talked about on the show. Was he so frustrated in his career as a medical doctor that it seeped over into his deep personal rage? And that was a trigger as well. But also, we know this, not to say this to anybody in my family or yours, Vinny, doctors come with some big egos, especially surgeons. And maybe he felt, if I can't have this woman, nobody will.
Yeah. And Brandy, the other part of it is the contrast. Monique's life was seemingly amazing and amazingly happy. Mm-hmm. 2 young children, a husband who was full of personality, loved at work, very successful. And they're building this amazing life, which may be a stark contrast to what was going on with the accused here.
Yeah, and if he has any kind of sense of blaming her for any of his shortcomings or any of his issues or any of the problems that he's facing, and she's gone on to live this happy life, that can also be very triggering for people. So that could also be another potential explanation for everything. I think that in this case, because we have so little information, it's causing us to just hold on to every little detail we can get and kind of speculate, but I can't help but wonder if that could be part of it.
Yeah, it's a piece of the big picture here. And I think what you were talking about, if there was some sort of a court date in September, what on earth was that all about? Okay, Joel and Brandy are going to stick with us. Coming up next, how did Michael McKee allegedly get in the house?
How does this happen? This is such a rare thing, and 2 people that, not a single person could say a bad word about them.
Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendan Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair.
So that is one of the cases I want to follow. I'm going to ask you guys on the next live which one you want to follow after Tepe. And we're going to go to missing kids. But the au pair case is also streaming on trial. I wouldn't mind covering that along with a couple of others. I'll put it out for a vote next week where we'll recap. They're probably going to be a week, 2 weeks in trial. We'll recap the evidence first and then watch the recaps of the live trials. There's 3 live trials right now going on that are of interest to me. If there's anything else you want to cover next week, let me know.
Killed his wife and another man.
I'm gonna kill her. I'm gonna kill her. It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage this week following jury selection on Court TV.
It was a place where we would all gather together for holidays, birthdays, just a random weekend. They were always having people over. They were just the center of a huge community of friends and family that they were the glue.
They were the center of their community, right? Their friends and family. And the house was also. It was the gathering place. It's where they got married. It's where they were raising their children. It's where they would invite friends and family. And ultimately, it was where they were murdered. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who's in Columbus, Ohio. Cody, you were at the house today. What did you see?
Yeah, Vinny, we always love taking our viewers to the scene to give them a better feel for the landscape. Now, as far as what I saw here in the Wineland Park neighborhood, I saw 2 obvious cameras across the street and ample places where Michael McKee could have parked his car, allegedly, if he committed these murders. Take a look at this. So we're headed down the sidewalk now, here in this up-and-coming neighborhood of Wineland Park in Columbus, Ohio. If you look across the street over there, that second home from the left, that is the home of Spencer and Monique Tepe. That is where the crimes occurred. Michael McKee, the alleged...
Remember yesterday we covered the possibility, who knows, whether or not he could have stayed at a local Airbnb and it was just kitty corner. Watch this because it's really interesting how he talks about could somebody have zoomed in and looked at the code at the door. And just yesterday, if you missed it, go back and watch it. Truth and Transparency covered the fact that there's an Airbnb just down the road, just a couple of houses down across the kitty corner across the road. Wild.
Murderer, the alleged double murderer in these crimes. That's the ex-husband of Monique Tepe. Now, what we do know is that according to investigators and according to court documents, Michael McKee was caught by his car. They tracked his car back to Illinois, where he is a licensed surgeon. They had footage of his car. Now, how could police get footage of his car? Well, if we stop here and look up, right here in front of me, on this pole, right across from the house, not only do we see the big police camera at the top with 3 different cameras on it, right below it, we see the black flock camera. We know those companies, well, police and flock coincide with each other to solve cases like this one. So probably one of these cameras right here is what caught his car arriving before the murders, the window of time that the police say the murders occurred, and then leaving shortly afterwards. Now, we continue across this street. We'll let this car turn real quick, right here in front of me. Now, if we continue across the street, you know, the big question that's left is, how did Michael McKee get inside this home? Because the home had no signs of forced entry at all. And in fact, Tepe's children, only aged 4 and 1 years old, were still left unharmed inside when the parents were murdered. But how could he get inside there? And also, where could he have parked? Well, of course, we can see he could have parked in any number of areas out here, on this side of the road, on that side of the road. But an option as to how he could have gotten in the home, we know it has a keypad. Maybe he had something that could zoom in on the keypad across the street. It had to have a serious zoom, and maybe he was stalking, spying on Monique in a fit of jealousy, zoomed in with something that maybe had night vision on it, where he could see what the code was that she typed in on the keypad. There was also a keypad on the back door of the house when we walked by in the alleyway earlier. But any number of places out here is where Michael McKee could have parked. In front of the house, behind the house, on this side street over here, where he could have parked. Any number of places. But again, we do know police tracked his car back to Illinois, back to Rockford, Illinois, where he is a licensed vascular surgeon. Michael McKee now in custody for the double murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe. And Benny, that just remains the biggest question here, right? How could he have gotten inside that house, a house that showed no signs of forced entry that night?
Absolutely. And we've been saying that from the beginning. It had to be someone that had the code, knew the code, or the door was left open, right? That's what we've been saying. But now we know who the suspect is, and that makes our question much more specific. And the next question we have is, how did Michael McKee allegedly get in the house? Now that we know who we're talking about, how would he allegedly get into the house? Still with me, our podcast host, Joel Waldman and Brandy Churchwell. Brandy, what are your thoughts here on how he could have gotten into that home without any forced entry?
I mean, the fact that he drove all the way there already tells you that this wasn't impulsive. He went there knowing he was going to get inside. That makes me think he possibly had the code. Now, I know that some of us, I know before I got into true crime, I used the same code for literally everything. Getting into true crime, you know, I changed that habit real quick, but I know that that is common. So with him having a familiarity with, you know, Monique, with them having been married before, maybe it's a situation where she uses the same code. Maybe the door was unlocked, but I feel like the other option could be, you know, if he's banging on the door in the, you know, early morning hours, and, you know, if Spencer comes to let him in and all he does is flash the gun and say, you know, I'm coming inside, that is an option as well. But for me, I feel like the most likely option is maybe he did have that code.
All right, Joel, what are your thoughts here? We've been saying this from the beginning, not knowing who it was. Now we have someone who's been implicated here. So how do you believe Michael McKee, the ex-husband from a decade beforehand, could have gotten into that home?
I mean, the real short answer without speculation is we just simply don't know because Columbus police haven't really revealed that piece of information, but they say it happened without breaking into the house. I spoke to a friend who's an investigative journalist, a very good one, and he actually tried using a magnet. Now, I haven't seen this done.
Listen to this. He tried using a magnet. Somebody else covered this. I think we really briefly touched on it. I can't remember. But he tried using a magnet, and I think he was able to get in and break the code. It's not the best of the best or the greatest home security systems, if that's the case.
I just heard it, orally, so I don't know how you do it physically, but apparently with a magnet, these locks are fairly easy to break into. So that's a new possibility. The other one is what Brandy alluded to, which is maybe he brandished a gun at the door and kind of forced his way in. Now, obviously, we just saw your reporter in the excellent reportage from out in front of the scene, and that's a busy street, right? So you wouldn't think that Michael McKee would want to flash a gun for too long with police driving by and other people driving by. And obviously, the fourth possibility is that somehow he knew this key code. I wouldn't put it past this guy, knowing what we know now, that maybe he hacked into a computer, maybe he knew a previous passcode and figured out the passcode somehow, and that is how he ultimately gained entry.
Yeah, and Brandy, your point is really well taken, that you're making that big drive that night. You're not going there not knowing that you're going to be able, whether or not you're going to be able to gain entry. And I guess you know that they're home as well, which is another part of the equation in being able to do that. I was thinking, and Cody kind of showed us, if someone is stalking someone and you're trying to steal a code, that would show a lot more premeditation to all of this, even more than is alleged by who the suspect is in all this. That's a possibility. But whatever it is, it took knowing how to do it, like the confidence to show up, I'm getting in and I'm doing it on this night.
Yeah, I think, something that's really interesting to me too, it really makes me want to see his Google search history. And maybe that's the trial watcher in me, but it makes me wonder, is this something that he Googled? Is this something that he looked into? Like Joel was saying, if you can use a magnet to open these things, or whatever it is, if there's ways to get into the home, it makes me, the investigator in me wants to see his Google search history to see, are these things that he looked into? Yeah, and Joel, as this case will go to trial, and I think that's going to be a big issue for prosecutors here, right? The defense is not going to wave the flag. They're going to put up a fight, and I think one of their issues will be, well, how did he get in there? And I think that's something that prosecutors will want to be able to figure out and explain to the jury. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Obviously, you don't need motive for a criminal trial, and I'm going to defer to you, Vinny, being the one-time prosecutor. But yeah, for sure, they're going to make the case that he did get in, and he did it using X, Y, and Z mechanisms to do so. And the criminal defense clearly is going to try to muddy the waters and say, hey.
Yes, we keep hearing that they don't need to have motive. They don't need to present motive, but we also keep hearing that the jury wants to hear motive. So what do you think the prosecutors are going to present as their motive? Do you think they even know yet? I bet you they don't even know yet, but they're probably leaning towards what? Revenge, jealousy, blaming them for everything that went wrong in his life. That's what we heard the other experts talk about. The other expert talk about. What do you think? What do you think the prosecutors are going to lean in on as to motive?
This guy maybe never got in, if they make the case that he wasn't on scene at all, which is doubtful when all the forensics come back from this case. But just to put a little cherry on top, we Google mapped it, and it is like a 6 hour and 48 minute drive, 6 hour and 48 minutes from Rockford, Illinois to Columbus, Ohio. And it does raise a great point. Are you going to drive that whole distance not knowing the code to get into the house, only to have to turn back around? I'm curious if he'd ever did a dry run and maybe found the code during a dry run, but still a lot of questions that need to be answered. Yeah, you're talking 13 hours of driving, right? Then plus the time that you're going to spend there. There's still a lot of questions in this case, but we have a suspect tonight in custody. Joel Waldman, Surviving the Survivor, Brandy Churchwell, 13th Juror Podcast, Crime Junkie Jury on YouTube. Thank you both so much. Still to come, how important will the surveillance video be in this case? I'm Vinny Politan. We continue our investigation of the murders of Monique and Spencer Tepe. The accused, Monique's vascular surgeon ex-husband, who she was briefly married to 10
years ago. Here's the story. The murders of Monique and Spencer Tepe shattered a quiet Ohio neighborhood and left 2 young children without parents. The couple was found shot to death in their bedroom after Spencer failed to show up for work, prompting frantic calls and a welfare check. Investigators quickly ruled out a murder-suicide, noting that no weapon was found and there were no signs of forced entry. For weeks, the case haunted the community with more questions than answers. Then came a stunning development. Police arrested Monique's ex-husband, accusing him of carrying out the execution-style killings while the children slept nearby. Investigators allege the crime was targeted and deliberate, and now the suspect is in custody facing aggravated murder charges. The one big piece of evidence that was released by investigators looking for the help from the public was that surveillance video of the person of interest that they wanted to speak to. Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas is live in Columbus, Ohio. Cody, we saw that surveillance video in the alleyway. You were there today in the neighborhood. What does that alleyway look like?
Well, Vinny, the alleyway is this long stretch that sits directly behind the home and the collection of houses there on the street. As you walk down it, it's probably 200, 250 yards. You can clearly see the divide where you can tell the neighborhood is transitioning. But aside from that, Vinny, the thing about it is cameras, cameras, and more cameras. Take a look. We're here on the sidewalk now, right here in front of the home of Spencer and Monique Tepe. This is where the crimes occurred, in this brown, grayish colored home here behind me. Now, we've seen the images, the video that police have put out of the person of interest before they arrested Michael McKee. It was in an alleyway here near the home. Now, if we walk up this way up the sidewalk, and before we get here behind the homes, one thing I do want to point out here on the neighbor's home, we see 1, 2, 3 cameras that could capture anyone coming down this sidewalk, any person, any car coming down this general area. But let's walk up here behind these homes to take a look at what's back here. So we get here and we turn the corner. You heard me mention that person of interest video that police put out. Here we are on the alleyway behind the homes. Now you see on either side, these are garages to the corresponding homes. This garage right here actually is the home that corresponds with Spencer and Monique's home. But right here, in that alleyway video, we see a bunch of blue trash cans that we see down this whole stretch. But right here on the neighbor's home, we see 2 cameras right here that can pick anyone up walking down this alleyway. Now I want you to get a good look. It's a pretty long alley. You can look all the way down here. You see a car down there towards the end, and then you can look all the way over here. Plenty of room to get caught walking down this alleyway. And actually, if we come over, we can see another camera on the back of this brick building, which looks like a business right here. Doesn't look like a residential area, but another camera right here on this building. So this is the alleyway that that person of interest video was caught on, that was put out into the public by police before Michael McKee was arrested. But we've zeroed in on this specific area of the alleyway, and specifically that camera there on this private garage. This is the area believed to be where the person of interest.
So this is so delightful to see. I'm really happy that they did this because there are a lot of cameras in the area. It certainly appears that they likely have quite a bit of footage. And I'm guessing this is why we heard one of the neighbors had deleted his cameras, because the police did the door knocking. They canvassed. They asked everybody for their cameras. And we heard one neighbor say he only taped it in the daytime and deleted all his nighttime footage, which is kind of funny. But based on this, there's so many cameras in the area, it's hard to imagine they don't have a lot on camera.
Chris was captured walking towards Spencer and Monique's home. Now, why do we believe it was this specific area and that specific camera that captured the person of interest? Well, we isolated 2 signifiers in the video. One being this light seafoam green door here next to this black mailbox with this black gutter running from top to the bottom of this building. You can clearly see that in the video of the person of interest that we took a still image and we isolated just to see what we can see to signify the area of this alleyway. And also the second one, now that we're out here in person, you can see that this is a stone wall here, but in the video, it kind of looks like this stone column near the person of interest's feet. This is also clearly pointed out in the video once you zoom in, isolate, and just really capture what was going on in that video that police put out ahead of Michael McKee's arrest. But again, this is believed to be the direction in this.
Remember, we showed the Gray Hughes video here where he showed that pillar. Remember? That's what he's referencing. Keep watching.
Area of the alleyway that the person of interest is walking down towards Spencer and Monique's home, down there towards the left, on the night of the murders on December 30th, 2025. Vinny, just want to reiterate, we are not saying that person of interest is actually Michael McKee. They are just a person of interest as it was labeled by police. But this is the video that police put out ahead of Michael McKee's arrest, which leads me to believe there was a reason for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cody Thomas doing great work tonight in the cold in Columbus. Appreciate it all. We'll speak again. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. How important will the surveillance video be in this case? Seems like it's already been extremely important in finding a person of interest, finding a suspect. Joining me to talk about all this, the host of Gray Hughes Investigates, Gray Hughes, who helped us go through that video and has a great analysis on his YouTube channel. Also with us, Ohio criminal defense attorney Don Malarchik is with us as well. Okay, let's start with you, Gray. What are your thoughts here? Now Cody's been there, he's seen it, seems to corroborate everything that you were figuring out in looking at that video. How significant, how important is all of it?
I think it's crucial to the case. I think it, obviously, I think he came in from the north of the house. So maybe on 9th Street or 11th Street, he parked the car, could have been further, but he came from that direction. And I think that sort of explains why possibly he's not on multiple other surveillance cameras, even the ones that I think Cody just pointed out on that last garage in the alley. It didn't, we don't know what they have. They might have 75 videos that have this guy walking around on it, but he definitely came from the north. I doubt he came in from the south, walked way up and came back down. And I think what it's also going to show is how long was he at the crime scene? I mean, that's something we don't know. They did say between 2 and 5, right? But then in the document, I think it said something like 3:52 was the time of the actual murder. So I think that they were able to hear audio on some of these other cameras and distinguish a gunshot sound to come up with the precise time of the shootings. I don't know how else they would know exactly when that was. And apparently they tracked him all the way back, from his car to the house and then back to the car and then all the way back to where he lives. And in the documents, it mentioned something regarding that, like they were able to, it said, detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicide. So they were able to track it all the way back there, and then maybe they found something like a toll booth tickets or something in his car that let him know that he'd crossed and went back and forth.
Yeah. Don, how important do you think the surveillance video is going to be? It seems like it's already telling a very compelling story.
Yeah, absolutely, Vinny. I'm sure what investigators are doing right now is trying to identify this individual we see in the surveillance video as Michael McKee. They're going to have the ability to estimate the approximate height, approximate weight of the individual that we see here on this surveillance. They should be able to zoom into a potential brand of footwear. Vinny, I had an arson case in Akron, Ohio, where we had a similar surveillance video, and they studied the gait of my client, how he walked. And they compared that to him walking and seeing him out on the street, and he had a very distinctive walk. We know Mr. McKee played football, right, in high school. Does he have any football injuries? Is there any type of specific gait, anything that would be a telltale sign that this individual walking right here is, in fact, Michael McKee?
Gray, I look at the story that it's telling. It reminds me a little bit of what happened in the Idaho 4 case, where they were able to track the killer that way, all of his movements. It's going to be, I think, interesting to see what other cameras picked him up. Are there gaps in the cameras at all where he's going from one to the next, and there's a point of time where he is not seen? And does it show him getting into the car? Does it show that car pulling away? Does it give a time frame that fits their timeline of when this murder took place?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed with the summary of the probable cause. It's like 2 paragraphs. I'm sure the actual probable cause is a long, detailed document that really lays out all the different times he's seen on camera. And it's really interesting how they said 2 to 5, but you remember in the Delphi case, they said, the car parked between 12 and 5. And we know it wasn't even close to that time when Richard Allen's vehicle parked over there at the abandoned CPS building. So they just kind of give you these wide ranges, but we know in the document, it said that at the time of death was like 3:52, or that's the time that the murders took place. So I really want to see and get the details of when they know that he parked the car, how long it took for him to get back to the car, and then what type of information do they have that sort of captured him on the entire trip back, et cetera. And one thing, I actually think that they might have known been aware that there was an issue with this ex-husband. I don't know. Did you guys remember in the 911 call, the owner of the actual dental office? He said that he was more concerned that the wife didn't answer. Monique. And why would you say that? Unless there was something that Spencer told him at work saying, hey, this guy, he's kind of bothering my wife. And that's why he was very concerned when the wife didn't answer. So I'm just wondering if there was some information that was told to the owner.
Right. And then one thing that has cropped up, we were talking about it, Don, is that there seemed to be something on the family law docket from September from a 10-year-old divorce case, which to me is completely bizarre.
It's really weird. I mean, it's so out of character. As we've talked about, these two individuals were married for a very short period of time. The divorce was, seemingly non-consequential. They didn't have kids. They resolved the whole divorce case within a month. So the fact that something got filed in September and here she is dead in December is incredibly telling. What was filed? What was the hearing? What did that trigger? And looking into that is going to be a really key piece to tie this guy McKee into this homicide.
All right, Don Malarczyk, great user, sticking around. Coming up next, what other evidence will investigators be looking for?
You don't know how to tell a 4-year-old that they're never going to see their mom and your daddy again. It's how do you? And how does the 4-year-old understand?
Tragic murder of Keith Canero and his entire family. This one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here.
The Mansion Murders Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings.
That is the other case I'm debating covering. If you have one or the two that you prefer, let me know in the chat below. Let's keep listening.
8/7 Central on Court TV.
We'll get you ready for the Au Pair Affair murder trial. Plus the latest on the mysterious killing of an Ohio dentist and his wife in their home.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Or now.
We're still in shock that just going through all of the, all of the types of grief all at once.
That is the brother-in-law of Spencer Tepe, who's been the family spokesperson and has really painted a very clear picture of this loving home, this loving couple, and this wonderful family, and the children now who have been orphaned. And the suspect is the ex-husband. This, again, let's take a look at the video. This was the key piece of evidence that was released by investigators showing the person of interest. And as we've been saying the entire hour, surveillance video, surveillance video, surveillance video. Here's from the affidavit that Gray was talking about. During the subsequent investigation, detectives were able to identify a suspect through neighborhood video surveillance. The suspect was tracked to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicides and left shortly after the homicides. Detectives were able to identify this vehicle further and link it to Michael McKee. Detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides, right? You want to prove that he had the car beforehand, he had it afterwards, therefore, you can deduce that he had it during the time that the crime was committed. So they've got all the surveillance video. But what else? That brings us to the next question in our investigation, which is, what other evidence will investigators be looking for? Now they've got their suspect, time to execute some warrants. Still with us, Gray Hughes and Don Malarczyk. Don, they're getting warrants. What do you think they're going to get the warrants for? Where are they going to look? What are they hoping to find?
Well, the gold standard of evidence, obviously, is DNA. So they're looking for two things. Number one, at the crime scene, did Michael McKee deposit any piece of himself there? Did he leave behind any DNA, any blood? Was there a struggle? We know that there are 3 9mm casings that were left behind. Does Michael McKee's DNA appear on those 3 casings? Does he have fingerprints on those 3 casings? Does he leave any fingerprints behind? Any articles that would tie him to that crime scene? The second thing, Vinny, that they're doing right now is executing search warrants in Illinois and anywhere Michael McKee would have been. The second question is, did Michael McKee take any of the 2 victims with him? Is there any of their blood, any of their DNA, fibers, hair fibers, clothing fibers, any materials from the house? Did he take them with him when he fled to Illinois? Those are the 2 big questions, in addition to, looking at his phone, going through his Google account, what kind of searches did he do? They're going to be looking at all this flock evidence. We can keep that for about 30 days. So what were his patterns of travel? Did he stop at a gas station along the way from Illinois to Ohio? Did he stop at a fast food place? Are there any cameras at all that would put him in that vehicle that was found at the crime scene?
All right, Gray, what are you looking for? What are you waiting to see investigators uncover here?
Well, he covered a lot of them that I had thought of. I would say, I would check those two fences by the little parking garage behind the house near the alley. There's two fences on either side that he could likely climbed over. I don't think he went to the front of the house. And I would check there for maybe footprints, DNA also in that area. I also was, obviously I was thinking about his cell phone. It might be important. I would imagine, but believe it or not, these criminals are still idiots after all this time, that he would have left the phone at home, and that would tell a story as well. You got a guy that's 6-hour drive away. He has a car and he's in all the way over in Columbus, Ohio, and yet his phone's at home pinging because he thought that, it'll look like I'm pinging there. They won't catch my car over here. And I think that would tell a big story in terms of premeditation as well. This whole case is premeditated. I think today they upped the charges where now it's like the death penalty or life without parole options. And I think, the fact that it takes 6 hours to drive there and he goes there late at night and he goes in there, this is obviously completely planned. I think the internet search activity might be incredibly interesting. There were some people out there that suggested that maybe he watched the wedding video multiple times and maybe there's something to that. He seems like somebody that was kind of like obsessed over the years and maybe he tried to get married again to keep his mind off of it. And then when he got divorced, he just kept thinking about it. But like you said on the previous segment, what is that from last year that's in the divorce hearings that they were going to have? There was nothing listed in terms of what it was. And I think that's a huge thing that they had a connection more recently.
Yeah. I'm interested, Don, in the search history to see if there was any stalking taking place, any sort of plotting, whether he's trying to figure out where she is, where she's going, and whether or not he took any video ahead of time.
Oh, absolutely, Benny. That would be the motive that the police are looking for. I'm sure they are talking to Monique's friends, her family. They're going through her phone. Were there any unexplained calls, any unexplained messages, text messages? Did she report anything odd? Seeing someone following her, a car, tracking her, anything like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge. That's going to be key.
Absolutely.
The big question here is, what is the motive? What was going on in this guy's head?
Trying to figure out why after all these years. Don Malarczyk, we're out of time.
Answering some of those questions right off the bat and being very specific made me think they have so much information related to an intersection between these two at some point before the murder. Maybe that was that proximal event I always talk about that happened that ignited this action that he took.
Talk to me about Nibin, because I've always been under the impression that Nibin, again, this sort of ballistics dating site, right, for lack of a better description, really got weapons that are out there from bad people doing bad things that already got arrested and those weapons went into the register. This guy, Dr. Michael McKee, is clean as a whistle. He doesn't have a scratch on his record.
When you think of using Nibin, that's typically in gang investigations and violent crime investigations where you don't have any clue who somebody committed it, but you have these casings that could connect to another crime. That's what we think of using Nibin for. But the fact that there is an intersection here tells me that perhaps he bought this weapon at a pawn shop. Perhaps he bought it from a friend of a friend who somehow was connected to some time where that weapon was used, and Nibin considered it important.
For folks who watch the show on a regular basis, I think they're going to know the answer to this question. But for folks who are kind of getting into the truth,
I think the police did a great job in this case, but I also think that there was a lot of mistakes made and on his part. And the fact that he may have bought this gun that was already registered in the Nibin database, used for illegal guns and guns that are registered having been used in other crimes, gangs and whatnot. He made a lot of mistakes, which is maybe he goes to the point that he didn't care anymore. But thank gosh he did, because they have seemed to have a fair amount of evidence against him.
space, a lot of people would wonder, why are the police so tight-lipped? They say they caught their guy. He's arrested. He's not getting out on bail. What's the big deal?
This is a big deal. Right now, they are looking at interviewing witnesses, anybody who saw or knew anything or understood that there were any issues. The minute you start releasing details about the investigation, you no longer know whether the individual you're interviewing is providing details that they really knew, or was it something they heard on the news. So it's very important that they stay tight-lipped at this stage.
And also that ever-present preservation of a prosecution. You know, if they look, Koberger, they didn't get to prosecute him. It was just a deal. But if this goes to trial, you need to really hold your cards close to your vest. You got to share the discovery with the defendant, but you don't got to share it with Ashley, you know. So I'm super curious about the confirmation today that the police said it was Dr. McKee, in their words, that skulking figure in the back alley. What is your estimation from your law enforcement background on how they determined that that was him?
Well, first of all, always, he has had this extremely unique gait. When I say always, I mean in all this film we've seen of him, from the beginning of time, he had that left foot that curved in, kind of pigeon-toed, has a very long gait, and you could tell he was a big man, not a small man. In addition, look at his clothing. It is unique to him, and I believe it was likely the clothing and maybe even that shoe tread that you touched on a few segments ago that led them to know this is him.
So at the end, I'm just going to tell the viewers, watch the very end, what he does with his face. And he looks away, takes his hand up, covers his face, pulls the hoodie down. I mean, that's a big telltale too. Look, in cold weather, I do that too. I grew up in Winnipeg. But if you are leaving a murder scene and you know there are cameras, this is kind of the behavior you might actually emit.
Exactly, Ashley. From the beginning, when this person of interest, was identified by law enforcement, to me, this person was so important. He was right near the crime scene at the time of the crime. And the way he acted like he was trying to hide and was guilty of something. So definitely a person of interest, a suspect.
Thank you.
I said, we are moving on. We are moving on up. Moving on up. Okay, let's watch. Let's watch.
The case against vascular surgeon Michael McKee in the murders of Monique and Spencer Tepe. We found out so much more yesterday in the press conference. So yesterday, the Columbus Division of Police held a formal news conference outlining for the first time the core evidence that led investigators to arrest Michael McKee in the murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe. What we heard yesterday was not theory, not rumor, and not internet speculation. It was evidence-based policing, methodical investigative work, and a case that appears to have been built deliberately and carefully over time. We're going to discuss today and break down what the police said, how each category of evidence fits together, and why this case moved from investigation to arrest when it did. And we talk about the ballistic evidence, the physical evidence, the link. According to Columbus Police, ballistic evidence played a central role in tying Michael McKee to the crime scene, and investigators confirmed that. Spent shell casings recovered from the Tepe residence were forensically examined. Those casings were later matched to a firearm connected to McKee, either through ownership, possession, or exclusive access. Ballistics are powerful because they don't rely on memory, emotion, or interpretation. They rely on tool mark analysis, microscopic markings left by a specific firearm that act like a fingerprint. Police emphasize that this match, and I'll show you some of the tool marks in an example. This is a firing pin impression on a spent shell, not the spent shell, that is unique to the firearm that it was fired from. In addition, these are extraction marks also that is unique to the firearm. So when they recovered the spent shells, and it was reported 3 spent shells, spent casings were recovered inside the Tepe's home, it was tied to the firearm owned by Michael McKee. And you could see this diagram, firearm generated markings on cartridge cases. So it's like a fingerprint. It's almost, if you will, a gun's fingerprint or a gun's DNA. So very, very, very powerful evidence. As we said before, it doesn't rely on interpretation. It doesn't rely upon testimony. It relies upon the science of ballistic tool marks. So police emphasized that this match was not circumstantial. It was scientific and reproducible, a critical threshold for prosecutors. And then we hear about the search warrants, what investigators recovered. The news conference confirmed multiple search warrants were executed during the investigation. Through those searches, police recovered firearm-related evidence consistent with the ammunition used in the murders, items linking McKee to planning, preparation, or post-crime behavior. materials that corroborated timelines already developed by detectives. Importantly, police stated these warrants were progressive, meaning each search was supported by evidence recovered from earlier steps, a sign of tightly controlled investigation designed to survive court scrutiny. So all of this amazing police work by the Columbus, Ohio Homicide Unit. A quick reminder, folks, if you're looking for real crime insight, not YouTube theories, this channel is different. I'm a retired NYPD sergeant, and on Police Off the Cuff, we analyze cases the way cops and prosecutors do. What matters, what doesn't, and what the internet gets wrong. It's that perspective you want. Subscribe now, because this isn't entertainment, it's experience. And I would like to remind everyone this show is sponsored by FanDuel on the Believe Network. So during the investigation, because we were all sort of chomping at the bit, wanting to know where the Columbus, Ohio police were in this investigation, specifically their elite homicide unit. And this is, I'm going to play some of yesterday's press conference. It's actually 14 or 15 minutes long, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. But we can really appreciate the outstanding job that these police for Columbus, Ohio did during this investigation.
Block of North 4th Street.
Information network. So if that gun was fired anywhere in this country and they have ballistic evidence of it, it would go into Nibin and it would match the evidence at this scene. So there's also a local one called IBIS, Integrated Ballistics Identification System. And it all deals with a technology called Brass Catcher, which can take the spent shells and identify the firearm that's in the database through the spent, let's say, cartridges. I always say shells, the markings on these. So unbelievable evidence. And I was hoping that when they did take down Michael McKee, when they did execute a search warrant on his property, that they would recover the firearm. And not only did they recover it, but they made a match with the ballistics on the crime scene.
Say that our detectives work around the clock to be able to solve this case. But it's equally important to know that while this is gaining national attention, we work around the clock to solve all of our homicide cases. I'd like to bring the mayor up now to say a few words.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all for joining us this morning. I want to thank Chief Bryant, the women and men of the homicide division who have done an incredible job on this case and so many other cases, 100 cases solved in 2025 because of their tireless work and professionalism and tips and information from the community that help.
You know, I just want to also mention that the Columbus, Ohio Homicide Unit, the police department, everyone should take a bow right now because they did an unbelievable job with this case. And they did it textbook. One of the things they did, which even though I'm a podcaster and I love information coming out,
they did a
they
great
were close to the best. They were very measured in what they released, and they were very measured in what they didn't release. And in the long run, I believe that really helps the case a great deal because the evidence that they needed and the evidence that they used to bring a case against Michael McKee, he wasn't prepared for it because he's a doctor, right? He's a medical doctor. And sometimes doctors think they're a lot smarter than everybody else. But when you're dealing on the home court of professional homicide investigators, believe me, Doc, you're not going to beat them at their game. Let's go back to the mayor. A little more information here.
We will not do or say anything that will compromise the likelihood of a conviction. One thing we can still offer this family is the best possible chance at a conviction and justice for this unspeakable crime. We could also continue to lift up this family in our thoughts and prayers. I will continue to lift up every one of the 84 families that lost a loved one due to violence in 2025. And I know the chief and the division of police will too, in their thoughts and their actions. I know this case has taken on national interest, but I want to tell each of these families, these 84 families, CPD pursues every case with the same intensity, commitment. And
all right, it's getting a little political here. You know, we all know that the resources that this case got was tremendous because it was a national case. It was a national story. Let me go back to the chief. I don't want to hear so much more politics from the mayor.
Link to that specific location as it relates to the ex-husband and Monique Tepe.
Do you believe he's the person in the video that you shared, the person of interest?
We do.
Okay, we're going to stop here because we've watched this interview multiple times and we've been streaming for 3 hours and 10 minutes. It's been a long stream again today. I want to say thank you to all the mods who've been here, everybody who's been here in the bushes, working at work with your phone on, or driving, or shopping, and to all our regulars who are here and always come and chat in the beautiful community that we have going here. I want to say thank you to you as well. To everybody that emails me and the tips that you send that I read. I read all your emails. I don't respond to all of them, but I do. Just to say thank you. I appreciate you all for being here. And we will be back Saturday night for more true crime deep dives. Until then, say some prayers for the missing, for the unsolved cases, and for justice for Monique and Spencer Tepe, and for these 2 young children now who will go on without their beautiful parents. And kiss and hug your loved ones. And we'll see you Saturday night. Love and light, everybody. Thank you.